Eh, Probably in the mailbox. We'll pack ice.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Yes! Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
How the heck are you, Miller and Moulton? Thanks so much for being with us. First Monday after the 4th of July holiday. It is the 6th of July. Hope you had a good holiday weekend, at least as good as you could make it. I'm sure it wasn't anywhere close to the normal 4th of July weekend, but hopefully we were able to get out a little bit. Have a little bit of fun. Mark, were you able to get out a little bit, have a little bit of fun?
I guess a little bit. A little bit. I mean, it sucked. Let's be frank. This is my favorite holiday of the year.
It is.
The 4th of July has a special place in my heart. There are no gifts to be purchased. There's no family to be seen. You are required to drink and eat. That's it. I mean, that's it.
No family to be seen?
It's not a requirement.
True.
It's not a requirement. Like Thanksgiving, my second favorite holiday, family is required. Why the 4th of July has the slight edge over the Thanksgiving holiday.
Huh.
But
so the football does not outrank the family requirement.
David, it's the Lions. I mean, come on.
Well, only one of the three, though. I mean, to many of us, it's the Cowboys. You know, I mean, the game that is most watched by far is at 4 o'clock Eastern.
I understand. And this is basically a Devil's Night, Mischief Night argument. I'm from Michigan.
Right.
The nation is right, David. It is Mischief Night. It is the Cowboys game. But when you were born and raised in Michigan, Thanksgiving's a Lions loss. That's just part of life.
You know, they're only a few games below 500 on Thanksgiving. Their winning percentage, while below 500, is much better than it is the rest of the season.
And I think in the years before my birth, it was even better. So I'll check on that later. But this year, let's just weigh this 4th of July.
Right.
You know, the tail of the tape. Because the numbers never lie, David.
No, Nick Buckeye was right a long time ago.
First off, let's just start this off. They give us a Saturday. So really no long weekend. Edge, Thanksgiving. Throw in a global pandemic and a fear factor, not to mention a hostility factor in society that I don't know if it's ever been as high as it is right now.
It's getting there.
I mean, the temperature is up.
It's getting there. I mean, the gas shortage, the late 70s there under Carter, the gas shortages, and then you throw in the little hostage situation, and, you know, the late 70s morale was not high either.
No. I mean, we did have a president. We did have a president that gave a speech and said it's worse than it was for our parents. No. David, but there's a lot of folks listening that weren't alive for that.
Right. I mean, when the speech that is most remembered of your presidency is referred to as the malaise speech, even though he never said that word in the speech, and not the mayonnaise speech, by the way, would have gone over much better. The malaise speech.
Yes. Yes. So it was just a tough 4th of July weekend to me. This was not a banner 4th of July year. 4th of July 2020. Sucked.
Wondering how many people did venture out. All right. Saw a few pictures. It looks as if a few people headed out to the beaches, although the crowds were not as big as I anticipated. I do think certainly in Collier County, it looked as if them closing the beaches from 11 a to 5 p did ward off many from the East Coast from coming over. Now, a few of them I saw ventured another 20, 30 minutes north and made their way to whether it be, Bonita Beach or Fort Myers Beach or whatever the case may be. But it does look as if that was effective there, that the mass exodus from Miami, Fort Lauderdale did not necessarily occur. They must have either stayed home or they went due north on I-95 to the first beaches that they could find open.
Yeah, I didn't go anywhere near the beach. Went down. Our neighbors had their kind of pool opening. They built a pool, so we went and checked out their pool. They've been to our pool. Now we've been to their pool.
No, a pool or a pond.
Pond be good for you.
Yes, very much so.
But that was the big adventure for us on the weekend. Got in the golf cart and went 12 houses down.
Right. I understand. Obviously I'm at a lot higher risk now for things than I was 6 or 8 weeks ago. So being very cautious, a little more cautious than I'd like to be. I got to be honest. I'm going a little stir crazy. I found myself just walking around the lanai, sitting outside even when it was hot. Okay, more than I normally would.
Ooh.
It just, yeah.
Ooh.
I'm
sitting there sweating, huh?
Yeah, well, getting there.
Something to do.
Yeah.
What'd you do on Thursday? Sat in the backyard and perspired for 28 minutes.
Right.
It was glorious.
Then what'd you do? Well, I went inside and cooled down. I will say this: I did exercise a little more this weekend.
Good for you.
And I'm feeling a little better because of it. All right, I am starting to. You know how I'd say the first 5 weeks, maybe getting out of the hospital and getting back in the swing of doing the show again. You and others have asked how you doing, and I said I'm doing okay, but I'm weaker than I thought I would be. I feel as if in the last 10 days that, you know what, I feel the way I'm supposed to feel. I'm like, this is how I used to feel.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So
good to hear you're getting there. You look a little better every day. You sound a little better. I can tell by how many times you have to stand and adjust yourself during the show. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, I know when you're not, I'm sure your wife does too. I spend enough time looking at you in this camera that all of a sudden when you're kind of stretching around and trying to find a spot, I'm like, you ain't feeling good today.
I love how you say adjust yourself. You do make me sound like a guy who's reached first. All right. And now I'm having to adjust myself. If you
it
know
is
what I
the
mean.
baseball hour. After all, you're not going to be able to lick your fingers, but you can still adjust yourself, David.
Let me tell you. All right. I don't know how these guys are going to do it. I mean, they are literally going to be like, and I am not trying to make a joke of this in any way, but, those of us who have all tried to kick, a habit, whether you've tried to stop smoking or stop drinking or, or just, hey, I'm on a diet and I need to stay away from this for a while, whatever it may be. Imagine you're a major league baseball player. Do you know how long you have been spitting and scratching and adjusting and seeds and tobacco and gum and toothpicks? I mean, what is Dusty Baker going to do? He gets a job again, and now he can't have his toothpick. I don't know if Dusty can get through the stress of games without his toothpick. This would be like Tarkanian without his towel.
And why can't he have a toothpick?
If you can't spit, how can you have a toothpick?
First off, how can you stop a society from spitting, let alone a baseball league?
Well, right.
I want to know what happens when the right fielder spits. Does a runner get awarded first base? I mean, I'm trying to figure out. Excuse me, Aaron Judge just spat, everyone. Stop the game.
Also, what? No high fives. You can't wait for the guy at home plate if they score, right?
There hopefully will be some good non-5-5s, if you know what I mean.
Oh, going to the dugout's going to be hysterical now. Okay, because there's going to be the normal blowing you off, which is everybody's just staying there 6 or 8 feet away from you because that's what they're supposed to do. And then there will be the huddled. Hey, we're intentionally blowing you off because you did something great, and we're trying to acknowledge it while not being able to acknowledge it. Like when they all leave the dugout. That'll be when you did something really good. That they'll all leave the dugout now.
I'm sure between now and the end of the show, 3 more practice facilities will be closed down.
The NBA, yes, they will. Uh-huh.
And between now and 9 a.m., you'll probably despise Bryson DeChambeau yet a little more.
Boy, I'll tell you, did the golf media freak out Saturday. I'm so glad he did it. I'm so glad he did it because this is exactly what we in sports talk radio, but also the golf world needed. I mean, some of the big boys now are going to start picking and choosing their events after most of the top 10 and really top 20 played the first 2-3 weeks. And now they're going to start adjusting their schedule, playing some of the courses they want, setting it up. Okay, I got the PGA in early August. I got the U.S. Open, mid-September, blah, blah, blah. All right, they're going to make it official this week that they're pushing the Ryder Cup back a year. That's what most people expect. They're going to do that coming up here later on in the week. But, Mark, my goodness, Bryson DeChambeau, and I mean, he was totally out of line. He's totally wrong.
Completely wrong.
Completely.
For those of you that don't know, let's just rewind.
Right.
Saturday, Bryson was in the bunker, hit a bad shot, and threw a little Sergio Nutty. Slammed the club into the bunker. He got angry. He got ticked off.
Because he hit a bunker shot at the 20 feet, which for a pro is like us sculling one over the green.
So he throws his nutty, and the camera stays with him for, oh, my God, maybe 30 seconds.
Right. Well, what else is there for the guy to shoot?
They stayed with him. And Bryson DeChambeau decides to go off on the cameraman and what's his name from the Golf Channel. Lets everybody have it.
Oh, I didn't hear. Who'd he go after on the Golf Channel?
Well, he gave the interview to him that was the interview in which he just basically gave him 30 minutes of why this was the worst thing that ever happened.
Right.
That was the main article we got was from that particular gentleman.
Oh, okay.
And Bryson was upset because he feels that this lengthy showing of him having an out-of-body experience after he hit a bad shot is bad for his
quote
brand.
There you go. Bad for his brand.
And the golf media have been traditionally the biggest lapdogs in sport.
By far. It's not close, by the way. It's not. And we're going to have Jason Sobel coming up here in about 2 hours. But the golf media, biggest lapdogs in all of sports. Honestly, Fox News gives Republicans more grief than the golf media gives golfers.
And I don't think it's close.
And then, by the way, the same can be said about
MSNBC
giving Democrats.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what I'm getting at.
David played to the audience.
Yeah.
We're crimson here. We're not blue. We're crimson. That's all.
Yeah, right. It's the theme of Southwest Florida is Roll Damn Tide.
If David would have said it the other way, some of you would have missed the joke.
Wait, what's he talking about?
Right.
What?
And so Bryson has his out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
And the articles.
The camera guy, remember, there's two golfers in the group. The camera guy's situated by the bunker because one of the golfers is in it. So while he's in it, he hits the shot, he slams his club down, and then he kind of huffs and puffs, and he walks out of the. Well, what else is the guy going to shoot? So he's following Bryson DeChambeau. By the way, just because the camera's on you doesn't mean it's on the air. That's up to the producer and the director. I mean, just because the camera's following you doesn't mean it's making the air. Now, it likely is on the air. You're a top 10 player in the world, and you're within 3 shots of the lead. And besides, you knew it was on the air because you acted a bit of a jerk by PGA Tour standards. By the way, I don't have a problem with a golfer getting mad at himself. I don't want them all acting like robots.
Bryson DeChambeau to a reporter from the Golf Channel, Will Gray. He was literally watching me the whole entire way after getting up out of the bunker, walking up next to the green. And I was just like, sir, What is the need to watch me that long? I mean, I understand it's his job to video me, but at the same point, I think we need to start protecting our players out here compared to showing a potentially vulnerable and hurting someone's image. I just don't necessarily think it's the right thing to do. He then stays behind. After he makes his bogey, he stays behind and gives the cameraman a tongue lashing.
Yeah.
If I'm the cameraman, I would have told Bryson to F off. Under no uncircumstances. I'd have said, get the F away from me and F off.
I don't work for you.
F off. And that's all I would have said. My finger would have gotten his face, said, get, and it would have turned violent.
Get away.
I'd have said, you little steroid raging baby.
Get away from me. I don't work for you. Get out of my face. And by the way, get away from me. We got this thing going on right now.
He's asking for privacy?
Yeah.
On the golf course? You're doing your job, bro. I don't know what to tell you. You want privacy in your own home? That's fine. You don't want to do a Faraday interview because you think it's getting into your privacy? That's okay. That's your choice. But when you're between the lines out there playing, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You made over $1 million for winning yesterday.
Can't have it both ways, dude. You've got sponsorship all over your shirt, all right, hat, bag, all right, you got sponsorship everywhere, all right. Then you want privacy? I can't have it both ways.
Now, the other side of this, his game's so damn good right now.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, like Feldo and they were talking yesterday, if he can dial his wedges in, look out.
Yeah, it's nice to know he's struggling with his wedge game, and he shot 23 under, and he's had 7 top 10s in a row.
Right? Because of the fact of the matter, he is struggling with his wedge game. I mean, struggling might be a loose term, but there's room for improvement in his wedge game. A lot of improvement.
His average approach shot into a par 4 this week was 108 yards. I want you to try to play your local course. Try to play it from the farthest up tees that you can play. And try to keep track of how close you get to the hole off the tee and see whether or not you can get, on average, to within 108 yards. What do you figure? The average par 72's got what? 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s? So you got 10 par 4s. You know, play from as far up as you can. If you can hit the ball decent ways and see whether or not your 10 approach shots you can average being 108 yards away. All right, from the hole. He did that for 4 rounds. 107.7 apparently was his average approach shot into a par 4. My favorite yesterday, and I thought it was a little showboaty. I was the 399 or 393 yard par 4, and he was up first, and he said to his playing partner, "Why don't you hit first? Because I might drive the green." Okay,
he might have.
Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the fact he did it. And I love the fact that he swung almost out of his left shoe going after that tee shot.
You know, we don't have enough of a golf audience, but my initial poll question for today, David, was, in order to have the worst possible foursome ever, it's you, Patrick Reed, Bryson DeChambeau, and.
Oh.
For me, it would be Bubba, because you know how much I despise Bubba. But, I mean, like, to play with 3 tour pros, I'd say, nah, I'm good.
Well, not only that, you got to pick somebody talkative. You got to pick somebody you think would drive them nuts. All right? Because you're guessing that both Reed and DeChambeau want to be left alone. All right? So it needs to be, the two of us, essentially. It could be you and I.
Riding in carts, one with Reed, one with DeChambeau.
Right. Hey, buddy. And just start the first hole, right? Right as we're getting off the first tee. Now, this is going to be a lot of fun.
Now, I would be fascinated to sit and interview Bryson DeChambeau. I would love to talk to him about golf and the golf swing and his thoughts. I don't know if I'd want to play 18 holes with him, if you know what I mean.
I would just like to bother the you know what out of them. All right. Hey, we ask this question on the show all the time. Okay, which one of the two of us do people hate more? Which one of the two of you do you think people hate more? Patrick, Bryson, which one? Okay, honestly, second tee, I'd break that one out. I would just let that one, ruminate for 3.5 hours.
All I'm saying is don't get mad at me when I root for the Euros and the Ryder Cup.
Right.
I mean, because if you look at this team, find one guy. Oh, maybe Jordan Spieth can make it too, and then it would be more fun.
Hey, I'm with Captain America, the Michelin Man. This is fantastic. I got to admit, DeChambeau looks like a young Jack. I want you to find some early pictures. All right. Jack, late 50s, all into about the mid 60s. I mean, he had the nickname Fat Jack. All right. You take a look at a young Nicklaus in his early approaching mid 20s.
Got to tighten Bryson's hair a little bit, but you're on to something.
A little bit.
Because Jack was short. Jack was military short back then.
It was, but Jack was big. Jack was thick. All right. Jack was barrel chested. Jack, started to have a little bit of a gut. Jack filled out those shirts. Jack didn't necessarily have a waist. Jack was a square. And Jack was hitting it further than just about everybody else. And, what they're saying about DeChambeau now, he's playing a different game. He is to some degree, but you know what? So's Matthew Wolff.
I was going to say it's not
other guys.
Right. It's not the way Jack was in the 60s. It's not the way Tiger was when he came on the scene. These guys kill it. Now, Bryson's just different because he decided to go out and eat a few people.
Right.
In order to get bigger.
Yeah, he ate Matthew Wolff between last year and this year. I mean, he did. I mean, the poor guy. Man, oh, man. But I think it's great, though, for golf. It is. This guy's, he's not normal. He's not. He thinks differently. You think about, is he 25?
6.
He's 26 years old. Think about he's already done two things that virtually no other golfer will do once in their career. And I'm not talking about win a tournament 4 years in a row. But think about it. I mean, Mark, is there anywhere in society where people kind of comply with the norm in sports? Is there any professional sport in which people kind of comply with the norm more than golf?
No.
I mean, tennis is close, but there's still a few people with a temper and this, that, and the other thing. But and here's DeChambeau. He's got a temper. Well, there's only about 10 guys on tour that actually show a temper. Number two, all right, he comes on tour and says, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know why you're all playing, one iron shorter than the other, shorter than the other. This doesn't make any sense. All right. I got an engineering degree. Okay. All the clubs should be the same length. This makes no sense. You should not have different swings for different clubs. Everything should be the same. You swing every club the exact same way. And everybody said, you're nuts. And he said, no, I don't know what you guys have been thinking. This is ridiculous. And DeChambeau has every single club in his bag, okay, I think except for the driver, all right, that are the exact same length. And then DeChambeau's one of the top, 20 players in the world, 15 players in the world a year ago at this time?
Right.
A year ago at this time. And he says, yeah, I got to get a lot bigger. I got to get a lot stronger.
I got to get stronger. I got to generate more club head speed.
Yeah, I got to take this to a whole new level. And he spends the next 8-9 months eating an entire Jordan Spieth. He eats Jordan Spieth.
Eats most of the players under the age of 25 on tour.
Right. And gains 40 pounds and now is just, is the longest hitter on tour or damn near. And he, they say, well, he is changing golf, which I would argue he's not. I'm sorry, he's not.
If he were changing golf, you'd have other tour players who have switched to that style of equipment.
Well, and they'd already would have gained 10 pounds, quite frankly. They've been back for a month.
Right.
I mean, you'd have guys who would be talking about, I'm going to bulk up.
And they've been lifting forever. I mean, knowing George McNeil pretty well, George never went to the gym through being an All-American at Florida State and making it on tour. George didn't work out. He got on tour, looked around, and said, holy crap, everybody's in the gym.
Right.
So this, Tiger reinvented the game from a workout standpoint. This is nothing new. But to me, if he had changed the game, David, it's not because he bulked up. It's because he did something completely different with the golf swing and the golf club, and yet there's not one other player out on tour doing that.
Correct.
That would be the change to the game. That would be Matt Wolff coming out of Oklahoma State going, yeah, I saw what Bryson did, and I was going into my sophomore year in college and said, I'll be damned. That made a lot of sense to me, and I changed everything I've done for 19 years as a golfer, and I went to that, and I'll be damned, I'm better. That would be changing the game. Now, it makes all the sense in the world that all your clubs are a 7-iron.
It does. It absolutely does. When I first heard it, I went,
me too.
Well, damn, that makes sense. We all have a club that basically our game could be going to you-know-what in a handbasket, and there's one club that you're like, well, I can always hit this. And you just bang, and you hit a good shot, and you throw it back in the bag, and one of your playing partners goes, you should hit that club all the time. Yeah, I know. Shut up. Leave me alone. Let me shoot my 94 in peace, will you blankety blank? All right. So that one does. And one final thing as we head to break, Mark. I don't know if you can sense it. I love how much, because we haven't heard NBC's commentators yet with the bulked up Bryson DeChambeau. Okay, really. I love how much Faldo and Baker Finch hate DeChambeau, and they don't like him. They can say whatever they want. They don't like him at all. They don't like him. They don't agree.
I do think Faldo's intrigued by him.
Intrigued enough to be sitting around having a cocktail with him, but deep down, when DeChambeau goes up to talk to somebody or he goes to the bathroom, he whispers to the person next to him, this guy's a yahoo. All right.
A friend of mine put on Facebook yesterday, and you've not met him, but he does a radio show as well, more pop culture type stuff. And he put out there, he says, this guy technologically has done so much to change the game and an incredible win, and he still leads the PGA Tour in douchebaggery. I mean, that's just, there is no, I don't know anybody that likes him. I mean, when he punches out and hits it in the water on the par 5, I was happy.
Well, it gave us a tournament, too. So for a half an hour, we're like, oh, thanks. It's kind of like DJ last week. It's like, hey, thanks for hitting it out of bounds of the par 5.
Right. Yeah, no, he did. Then he makes a 35-footer for birdie on the next hole and kind of said, this is over. But you're right.
Miller and Moulton. Starting 5 is coming up. Hope you made something out of the 4th of July weekend. Hope you were able to hope many of you had Friday off and you were able to at least enjoy some downtime. Miller and Moulton. Starting 5 is next. Good show lined up for you. Keith Smith to talk NBA, Jason Sobel to talk golf, and Andy Poland will go live to D.C. where change is in the air. And we don't mean politics. Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
We work for you.
You know how it works, right?
We do this for you.
It's not often that you get to work with somebody who you respect.
We give you the information you need.
Every single day there's a news story.
We got a story.
We've been working on that all morning long.
We do this all for you.
Which is how the business works.
We are Fox Sports Radio, and we're working hard for you.
Whether you stop by a locally owned Napa Auto Parts, Napa Auto Care, or visit Napa online, if you need help with your ride, you can count on Napa Know-How.
Dial star 2020. France Eye Care.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jonathan France. We know that weakened vision can limit our ability to enjoy day-to-day activities. And with the clear advantage of the Panoptix lens, seeing without glasses for distance driving, computers, and reading is now possible. This is the first and only trifocal lens that is designed to be used to help people get 20/20 distance, near, and in between. Most importantly, I've been doing cataract surgery for over 30 years. Experience matters. Quality outcomes matter. Reputation matters. And most importantly, I want you to know that I'm going to treat you like a member of my own family. You deserve to see your future in 2020.
Dial star 2020. France Eye Care.
I want to talk about Stadium Dry Cleaners, my good friends.
Top of the
They are
morning,
great people
everybody.
there. I've been going to Stadium Dry Cleaners, I'm telling
My
you, for
fake
as
Joe Buck
long as
impression.
I can remember. And you may know Larry Rose. Now, Larry is
Joe
an
usually does
experienced
something
SEC
like that
and NFL referee.
right
Well,
before
I know Larry has a
starts the
fantastic dry
broadcast.
cleaner and a great businessman. Look, you're going to love Stadium Dry Cleaners.
Exactly.
And discounts
Heckle
for our
Hyde.
first responders
Okay.
and seniors.
I mean,
They have
in your
multiple
corners, what? Fox
locations.
4?
Here at Publix
Wink
at Daniels
is
Crossing in
Wink
Fort
News
Myers,
now.
the Gateway Trade Center in Fort Myers.
And then I think
the Elegant
ABC
Image
7 is
Dry
working
Cleaners
for
next
you.
to Walgreens
Let's
on
count
Del
on us
Prado
as
in
NBC
Cape
too,
Coral.
right? There you
They
go.
are Lee County's leading dry cleaner since
Heckle Hyde,
1988.
I don't know if you
30
remember,
years of
Mark and I
experience
used
in Lee
to,
County. I'm
heading
telling
to
you,
break
I
for a
trust
while,
My family's dry
we used to
cleaning
say,
Larry and the team at Stadium Dry Cleaners.
you can count on us to be in your corner working for you now.
And look for
And
their
we
monthly
incorporate all
specials
four
for
slogans
great savings.
Listen
into
to the
one.
Dan Patrick Show at work.
Never boring.
And
that's for sure.
Streaming
local media
24/7
love
at
this for us.
foxsportsfm.com.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know.
Mark, I made fun of Fox Sports Radio.
Dan Martineau here, owner of
They
DR
have, a
What's that?
national, they have a national promo in which Fox Sports Radio talks about working for you.
Integrity, knowledge, and service.
I see that.
DRM
And it made
Roofing.
me think
Or
of
call
you can count on us to be in your corner
239-332-1442.
working for you now.
That Matthew Wolf loss did not help us, David. That would have been big for us.
The name you need to know.
Ah.
DR Martin.
I don't know where we are in this thing.
No matter where you're
I
you
can't
didn't-
imagine we're doing that well.
No, we were, last time I saw it, we were getting killed. But the one thing he did, because the order got all screwed up, is he kind of cut the money in half, and he gives everybody a free entry into the Masters pool. Since the PGA Tour got all screwed up, he kind of changed on the fly. And when his Masters pool's up, we have a free entry in that.
1664 for more information, or visit
Oh, boy.
With Towboat US.
George had a good weekend.
On the water.
He did. Hey, making the cut these days is pretty good, considering you got to go about 400 or 500 to do it.
Conveniently located in Cape Coral, with more than
Probably not enough to get him in
75,000
next
frameless
week,
shower
though.
doors installed. No one has more
T39
experience
made
and
30
5-star
grand.
reviews than My Shower Door. We've been named #1 by readers of the News Press and Naples News for 17 consecutive years. and
This
have
is
just
how
been
hard
named
it
as
is
Lee
to
County's
keep your tour
manufacturer of
card.
the year. Want to see
Let's
more?
just
Go to
say George was full-time
myshowerdoor.com.
on tour.
Checkup. Call the doctor.
He'd play
The
what?
Pool doctor.
Hi,
If he
Dr.
played
Mark
25
here. Is
events,
your
that'd be a
brain
lot.
pain
Yeah.
to operate?
25
Automation
events,
is
let's
the
just
answer.
say.
Use your
If
phone
he
to
did
turn
what
on
he
your
did
spine
this
and
week,
Wouldn't come
remotely
close.
at home. Free on-site
$750,000, he'd be
evaluations.
what, 150 grand short? What do you got to make, about 900,000 now to keep your card?
Oh, I bet you it's closer. You might be right, but it might even be a mill now.
$49 diagnostic calls. That's
So think about that.
mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 05708.
George shot 4 rounds under par.
Now back to Miller and
T39.
Moulton.
He did that for a full year with the only Corn
This
Ferry.
is Miller and Moulton.
Your life.
Tour. 25 minutes before 7 o'clock. Wow. This is a long monologue. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show at millerandmoulton.com, and hopefully you have signed up. What are you waiting for? For the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. They're interactive and they're free. Without further ado, time now for
The starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting five. Fox Sports Radio and foxsportsfm.com.
Bryson DeChambeau picked up his first win of the year, his 6th of his career. He shot a 7 under 65 in the final round to win the Rocket Mortgage Motor City Open. He beat Matthew Wolf by 3, birdieing the final 3 holes to do so. George McNeil played this week, made the cut, 4 rounds under par. George finished T39, made himself $30,000. And to show you how tough it is to make a living on the PGA Tour, George McNeil fired 4 rounds under par, shot 11 under this week, as we mentioned, T39. If he did that for an entire season on the PGA Tour, he'd get demoted. He'd be on the Korn Ferry Tour.
Oh, yeah.
Year. I mean, that's how hard it is on the PGA Tour.
I mean, you shoot 6 under in 2 days, and you barely make the cut.
Right.
Made it by 2 shots. Shot 6 under for 2 rounds, and you made the cut by 2.
Right. He's heading down the stretch on Friday going, hey, I can't make a number here or else I won't be around for the weekend.
Wow.
Well, what are you, even par? No, I'm 6 under. Kevin Harvick won the Brickyard 400. Matt Kenseth was second. Denny Hamlin was leading with about 10 laps to go when his right front tire blew and he went into the wall. Ross Chastain led a lap and finished 17th yesterday. That's after a 6th-place finish on the road course.
I thought that was pretty good for him.
On Saturday, yeah.
Considering when we talked to him, he says, I really don't do this. I've only done it a handful of times, and I'm not that good at it.
Right, as he jokingly said. We talked to Ross from Vegas in the middle of last week, and we're like, what are you doing in Vegas? And he goes, well, I'm out here getting lessons on how to make right-hand turns. I'm pretty good at the left-hand turns, but on this road course, apparently you got to make right-hand turns, and I need some help with that. So he finished 6th in the road course race on Saturday and then finished 17th in the Brickyard 400, but did lead a lap late in the race. Looks like the Redskins are changing their name. You know, we wondered late last week before we signed off for the week if this was going to happen, and it looks as if it's happening. Daniel Snyder, who had vowed it would never happen for as long as he owned the team, looks like it's going to happen, Daniel. But here's the interesting thing. He's got 3 minority owners.
Who all want out.
Yeah. They own 40% of the Redskins. Snyder owns the other 60%. One of the guys is the guy who owns FedEx. And remember, the Redskins play at FedEx Field.
And FedEx has pressured them to change their name. I mean, all of the years of Native Americans wanting them to change their name did nothing for Dan Snyder. Right. FedEx and Nike telling him to change his name got him to change his tune in 12 hours.
Right. I don't want to say it's all about the money.
No, it's not.
No.
He just had a different thought process. He woke up and said, you know, I've been wrong all this time.
Cleveland Indians apparently woke up the next day and they thought the same thing because the Indians now are revisiting their name and it looks as if they are going to change it. I will say this, going back to the Redskins, and there's a lot of people throwing in their 2 cents. They should then rename it this, rename it that. There is a hell of a suggestion, and Dwayne Haskins picked up on it a day after it was suggested, is call them the Red Tails, all right? The Tuskegee Airmen, all right, flew planes that were called the Red Tails because literally the back end of the plane was painted in red, all right? And I don't see anybody could have a problem with that. And in fact, it would, I think, go a long way to, well, helping Daniel Snyder's image. So, you know, as for the Cleveland Indians, what are they going to change their name to? Don't know. But there's a very good chance that this 2020 is going to be the last year that the Washington football team's named the Redskins and the Cleveland baseball team is named the Indians, which, of course, then leads those, all right, who's next on the list? Well, the Kansas City Chiefs and the Atlanta Braves. And the Braves have already come out and said, yeah, it ain't happening. All right. And we've spent time with the Native American community. We've talked to them, and we're not changing our name. Now, the Braves are beginning to lean towards getting rid of the tomahawk chop chant.
And they already lost some of the logo. I mean, the logo did have a, cartoonish Native American before. That's been gone for a while. So the Indians did that as well.
Right. They got rid of Chief Wahoo. Right. What's interesting is the CFL's got a few nicknames in which they're taking those under review. One of them's the Edmonton Eskimos. They came out and said, yeah, we're not changing our name either. All right. So just that's what's going on that front. Some quick NFL news. Browns tight end David Njoku has requested a trade. Now, just because you request a trade, it's like Jamal Adams of the Jets, doesn't mean the team has to. But Drew Rosenhaus is an agent, and they're like, we would really like a trade before training camp. Yeah, don't we all? I will say this, though. If you're the Browns, you know, the Jaguars there got that defensive lineman, Ngaku. Do you trade Njoku for Ngaku? All right. But also, a couple of guys want to change the scenery. It's a thought. I mean, the Browns would have to give up more than just a tight end to get a 25-year-old D lineman, but I'm just saying. In Japan, they're going to start allowing fans at their baseball and soccer matches. They're going to allow either 5,000 fans or 50% capacity, whatever is smaller. And then the hope is, Mark, by August 1st, they'll allow 50% capacity at all their baseball games and soccer matches. The NBA, middle of this week is when teams are going to leave either their practice facilities or wherever they are working out, like the Raptors here in Southwest Florida at FGCU's Alico Arena. I believe on Wednesday is when they'll head on the bus and head to Orlando. It is worth noting that 6 NBA teams have already had to shut down what they were doing at home. Milwaukee, Sacramento, Denver, the Heat, the Clippers, and the Brooklyn Nets have all had to shut down what they were doing because a few too many people have tested positive for the coronavirus, and then they'll head to Orlando. All righty then.
I got nothing for you there, David. You're on your own with that one. Yeah. I don't even know what to add.
Turns out the NHL might have been the smartest league of all. They waited, and they said, you know what, we're going north of the border. Apparently 9 people have it there. And so they're going to Edmonton and Toronto.
Funny, they shut down, wore masks, and did they were supposed to, and they've effectively ended this. Huh.
Wow. They're targeting a week from today, July 13th, is when training camps will start, and that the NHL will resume on August 1st. Right now, those are the tentative plans. They have not been formally agreed to. Mark, I did read something over the weekend, though, in which it looks as if they're reconsidering what teams are sending where. I thought I read a story in which they said they're now going to send the Eastern Conference teams to Toronto and the Western Conference teams to Edmonton. I mean, it would seem to make sense. I don't know why everybody's got to fly 2,000 miles or 2,500 miles or 3,000 to 4,000. I mean, why would you send the Florida Panthers to Edmonton?
I can't help you. I'd like to go to Edmonton in the summer, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful. Players have till 5 o'clock tomorrow to opt out, and they don't have to give a reason, by the way, in the NHL. Don't have to give a reason. Not going to hold it against them either. You want to opt out? You got till 5 o'clock tomorrow. Speaking of opting out, David Price opted out. Now, he still has, after this year, he's still got like 2 years left on his contract with the Dodgers. But David Price, who, along with Mookie Betts, acquired by the Dodgers, remember, back in spring training? Does everybody remember that? Price has opted out in pitching for the Dodgers this year because of the coronavirus. And some big news that was made late Friday and over the weekend. There has been a movement, and it even goes back before George Floyd's murder and the Black Lives Matter movement being much more front and center in the last 6 to 8 weeks than it was before that. This goes back to last fall, in which there's been some talk in basketball circles about, if the young black basketball player really wants to make a statement, especially the one that's only going to be in college for a year, doesn't matter where you play. Scottie Pippen played at a JUCO, for goodness sakes, got taken essentially like 6th overall. I mean, you can play anywhere. Why not play at a historically black college? All right. Yeah, okay, you won't face the level of competition, but you'll play a half a dozen non-conference games against so-and-so. And besides, everybody knows how good you are. And if you really want to make a statement and you want to do something, you want to change college sports and really lift up a group of schools who need this generation
need it.
Financially, they're hurting so badly. This is historically black colleges are not what they were in the 60s, 70s, and 80s from a football standpoint when they were. It's the elite athlete is not going there anymore.
No, it was Al Davis's birthday over the weekend, and Amy Trask, who was hired by Al Davis, put out a long tweet of all of the things Al did. And one of those was drafted more players from historically black colleges than any other general manager in the sport.
And it was one thing that the AFL jumped onto before the NFL did in the 60s. And some great players. I mean, the Chiefs team that won Super Bowl IV, some of their best players came from historically black colleges. Well, 5-star recruit rated as one of the 20 best high school basketball players in the country, 6'11", Makur Maker, chose Howard University over UCLA. And he also chose them over Kentucky and Memphis. And he came out publicly and said, I hope I'm the first. And I hope, and he named one kid by name, joins me. And then I hope kids in the next couple classes consider going to the historically black colleges, and especially those of us that are only going to be here for a year or so. And he could still go to the G League if he wants, but he has said, nope, I'm going to Howard. Good for him. Because there's been a movement in recent years, Mark, in which some kids have gone to some Ivy League schools. They've had the grades and they could do it. And some have chose Princeton and Harvard and Yale, and they've made their statement that way, which is another great statement. Okay. So Makur Maker chose Howard over UCLA. And that, Mark, is
the starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton Starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and foxsportsfm.com.
At 13 minutes before the hour. We've got to come up with a poll question. We've had darn near 4 days to think of one. I don't think we've thought of one at all. So now we'll have to do it in the next 4 minutes.
Haven't even given it an ounce of thought.
There you go. Miller and Moulton. That's how we roll. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
All right, worst 4th of July ever.
Talked a little bit about the McGuire Sosa documentary, and I think if this
yes
was
or no
last year at this time, we'd probably go, oh,
if you could play golf with Bryson DeChambeau or have a root canal, what would you choose?
Armstrong documentary, it sort of fell flat because you're going, okay, kind of lacked a little meat. They weren't forthcoming with anything other than what was happening in the moment.
How about you want to ask, do they need to change the golf ball?
At 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida.
I don't think enough people care.
And foxsportsfm.com.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time.
How about the Redskins thing?
For
all right,
Fans' health,
I'm in.
During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood.
Just should they change their name?
The greatest issue for guys with
well,
low T.
The danger of that is, they're going to change their name.
Right.
Low T care is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy when they start, and most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated.
See, I think that
improves once your mood improves. Feel the difference.
To me, the Chiefs will be interesting.
Can make in your life. I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, I could do the show on that. Is Chiefs a derogatory name to the Native American? I know Redskins is. I'm not sure Indians and Braves are, but I really don't think Chiefs is, and I don't know.
Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
Oh, and the two things that are going to come under fire next after the Redskins and Indians go away, it'll be Chiefs and it'll be the Blackhawks logo. We need to talk. Well, here it goes. We need to talk, but don't panic. Which is only the best logo in sports. Those glasses and contacts you're sporting, they're just in the way of you having the freedom to enjoy. I mean, that's all. It's no big deal or anything.
Right.
It's just the best looking. Their white jerseys are incredible. Team of surgeons want to help you see your future in 2020 through the advanced technology of laser vision correction. So what if you've been told you're not a candidate for LASIK? France Eye Care wants you. Got to root for a Braves Indians World Series now, don't we? Learn more. You need to call now. Schedule your free
Chiefs Redskins Super Bowl.
That's a pipe dream. You to experience better vision and a better life. Dial ** 2020 from your. I have already put my 2 cents in for final week of the year. The Redskins, I think, play at the Eagles, and I'm like,
listen to Miller and Moulton at home on your Amazon Alexa. Just say, Alexa.
Receiving. Over.
Play Fox Sports FM on
Ennio Morricone passed away, David.
Marconi?
Did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, The Thing, The Mission, The Untouchables, Mission to Mars, Bugsy, Disclosure, In the Line of Fire, Bullworth, Ripley's Game, The Hateful Eight, and over 400 scores for TV and cinema.
Call us today for a free inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-1441.
License number CCC 1326954.
For professional roofing, the name you need to know is D.R. Martineau.
Hardee's presents the new spicy Western Bacon Cheeseburger. It's just like the Western Bacon Cheeseburger with char-broiled beef, crispy bacon and onion rings, and topped with tangy barbecue sauce. But we added spicy jalapenos and melty pepper jack cheese. We took a burger that was already delicious and spiced it up. Why are we using this whip crack to explain it? Because jalapenos sound like this. Try the new spicy Western Bacon Cheeseburger at Hardee's. Feed your happy. Limited time only at participating Hardee's restaurants. Price and participation may vary. Hardee's presents the Southwest Omelet, Biscuit, and Burrito. Wanted in 42 states on charges of bringing a sweat to the brow of breakfast lovers with low spice tolerance. We start with a made-from-scratch biscuit. And then we add a fluffy omelet full of melted cheese, crispy bacon, and spicy jalapenos. And if you're feeling extra wild, you can get it all
I got a
wrapped up in a
topic for
burrito.
7 o'clock.
The Southwest
Good.
Omelet, Biscuit, and Burrito are back. Only at Hardee's. Feed your happy. Limited time only at participating Hardee's restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
No matter where you're
You got a
going,
poll
with
question?
Towboat US,
No.
you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local
I still
Towboat US
think,
companies
who do you
are
like
sharply
least?
call your
Bryson
companies
DeChambeau,
24/7,
Patrick Reed.
365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lako, and out 75 nautical miles. And new membership
I don't
pricing
know what
starts
the
as low as
Redskins
$99.
question is. That's my only problem. I would love to go there, but what's the question?
1664 for more information.
Answer the
Visit
question!
US Cape
The
Coral.com.
question, you
With
jerk.
Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water. Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Seven minutes before 7 o'clock, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We are Miller and Moulton. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show on millerandmoulton.com. We broadcast this show on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Sign up for them. They are free. Our poll question on Thursday, and we let it, play out through yesterday. How many regular season games will be played in college football? We gave you three choices. Conference games only. So it doesn't matter what conference, if it's 8 or 9. Conference games only. A full season. And, they're not even going to get in all the conference games. We're going to play 7 games or less this year. And that won. Almost a majority. But they had a plurality. 45% of you said that college football is only going to get in, half a season, basically. 29% of you said they'll get in the conference games. 26%, so basically 1 out of 4, think that college football will be able to play a full season. And obviously right now, a couple of different numbers. The number of deaths from the coronavirus never been less than it is right now. Once this thing became a pandemic in this country, the number of deaths very low, but the number of cases very high. So there's stats there for you, whichever one you want to jump on.
That's it. This is the ultimate statistic. Whichever way you want to take these, there's a pretty good chance that you can. Did you happen to see what Nationals pitcher Sean Doolittle said yesterday?
No.
I thought it was the comment that it's a long quote, but basically he's pretty ticked off at the way we've handled the coronavirus. Okay. And he says at the end of it that basically, sports are like the reward of a functioning society. And basically says, I don't know why we think we could have sports because we're not functioning right now. We didn't do this right. And just teed off at everything. But he's still going to play.
Well, yeah. I mean, at least until they tap him on the shoulder and say we can't play no more. Yeah. So Major League Baseball, they're conducting their spring trainings Wednesday, Thursday of last week. Guys reported, players are working out. Some are opting out. Season begins 2 weeks from, I think it's Thursday. In fact, the Nats, I believe, are involved in one of the 2 opening games. They'll be playing the Yankees to begin defense of their World Series title. If you're the Nats, by the way, next year, do you hang the banner? And because, if you think about it, if you're a Nats fan, opening day for the Nats was going to be sold out and they were going to raise the banner.
And it's one of the joys that you have as a fan. That's right. Your chance to feel part of the team. That's it.
Yes. And remember, they won the World Series on the road. Okay, so yes, they had a parade and all that, but you know what I'm getting at. If you don't have any fans at any Nats games this year, do you still raise the 2019 banner on opening day in 2021?
Yes. Actually, David, I think yes.
It would be weird for the players, but I think for the fans, it's something you consider doing. Not only that, it's a cheap promotion. Come on. And Mark, anytime you get a gimme like that, you got to take it.
You've got to take advantage of the gimme. There is no doubt there. Miller and Moulton, great show coming to you today. We'll get at it in hour number 2. Miller and Moulton. Keith Smith will join us in 30 minutes. Kevin Smith, but I said Keith.
Good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floormeisters in Naples, on the phone.
Still getting used to 40, David.
Selection and
I went,
great
shit, it's 40, isn't it?
Flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Cortec in stock, ready to go pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floormeisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281 Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
We miss our baseball.
Getting baseball back on the field.
Come back and play kicking and screaming.
There will be baseball. Baseball's back.
Where do we go from here now?
And the marathon will be a sprint.
This has a chance to be the most exciting regular season that we've seen in decades.
An unprecedented
60-game season.
In unprecedented times.
Through all the health concerns.
How it plays out.
Every game matters.
Everybody does have a chance. Will play out.
We shall see.
On Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Looking for a frameless shower door? My Shower Door has just opened their 8th Florida showroom, and it's conveniently located in Cape Coral. With more than 75,000 frameless shower doors installed, no one has more experience and 5-star reviews than My Shower Door. We've been named #1 by readers of the News Press and Naples News for 17 consecutive years and have just been named as Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. Want to see more? Go to myshowerdor.com.
WFSX AM from Naples to Cape Coral and all of Southwest Florida. 105.9 Fox Sports Radio.
We are Fox Sports.
Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the Center for Men's Health. C4MH.com.
What's Devitt doing at home?
Yeah, I know.
Is that Rona?
What else can it be?
It's got to be, right? He's got to be asymptomatic.
Or he is playing it safe because he came in contact with somebody. And so he's just going to lay low for a little
weird.
while.
I mean, like I told you, I went and got tested. I'm negative. David, after I got tested, I've not been able to smell. Like I had one symptom, and now I have another. Like, I'm thinking about going to a Ready Med and get tested again today.
Yeah, well, I mean, just because you're negative on Saturday doesn't mean you're not positive on Monday. I mean, remember the person with the White House. They test them every day. I mean, she was negative until she was positive. She got tested on back-to-back days. They pulled her off. She was about ready to board Air Force One. They tapped her on the shoulder and said, yeah, you can't go.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
But not being able to smell sucks.
Yep, that's it.
I know you know that.
You know what? I'll try to bring you back some fish.
And Moulton.
Okay.
Well, no, you've never been able to. You've always said that.
Probably in the mailbox. We'll pack ice.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We're Miller and Moulton. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming at millerandmoulton.com, and we're broadcasting live on Miller and Moulton's YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Keith Smith to talk a little NBA from his hometown of Orlando will join us at the bottom of the hour. Jason Sobel in roughly an hour will join us to talk some golf and some Bryson DeChambeau and Eddie Poland from 6:30 ESPN in D.C. will join us to talk about the Redskins at long last. They appear as if they are going to change their name. Their head coach wants them to change their name before the season starts. Yeah, I don't see that happening. If for no other reason than, let's cut to the chase. The reason he's going to do it is financial. I mean, that's why Daniel Snyder's changing the name. It's not because of political pressure. It was because sponsors got pressure and then pressured him and said, we're going to withhold millions of dollars from you unless you change the name of the team.
Nike took all of the Redskins merchandise off of the internet.
Right.
I mean, and FedEx, who was the title sponsor of their field,
right,
told them they needed to change their name.
Right. And the guy who owns FedEx is one of the minority owners of the team, owns like 1/4 to 1/5 of the team. Right. Mm-hmm. And he's
50 years of Native Americans complaining about the name did nothing. Dan Snyder told them basically, rip it out of my cold, dead hands. I mean, he went Charleston Heston with the name.
Yes, he did.
And all of a sudden, out of the goodness of his heart, he's going to change it. No.
Right. So this is all about money.
Right, and he's going to sell as much damn Redskins merch in 2020 as is humanly possible. So when he changes the name, he can sell merch with whatever the new name is.
Right. That's why I would say to Ron Rivera, hey, X-nay on the changing the name before Labor Day, All right, just come on now. All right, we've got a Christmas shopping season here. All right. And, people are going to buy a lot of Redskins merchandise, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So take it easy, Ron.
We got to get those Sonny Jurgensen jerseys back out there. There's a lot that needs to be sold, baby.
Billy Kilmer, Dan Theismann. Right. You just worry about
single bar helmets. We've got 3 guys that wore that.
Right. Ron, you just worry about grooming Dwayne Haskins. Okay. We'll take care of the merchandise if you don't mind. Obviously, people are jonesing for sports. Baseball is supposed to start up here 2 weeks from Thursday. The NBA is supposed to start up the Thursday after that. Hockey is right now. The tentative plan is August 1st. Knock on wood. We'll see how this all goes. College football, we got about 2 months here. What are we at? July 6th. So, do some quick math. We're at like 61 days, I think, away. I think we're at 61 days away from the first Saturday in September. So we're 54 days away, technically, from the season kicking off.
From week zero. If it happens, week 0.
If it happens. I'm just going to throw this idea out there. You tell me how crazy it is. If I'm the Pac-12, if I'm the AAC, I come out and I go, we're playing spring ball. Just telling you right now for this year. We're not playing in the fall. We're redoing our schedules right now. We're going to try to keep as many of the non-conference games as possible. If our non-conference opponents don't want to move their games to the spring, we get it. All right. And if we have to reconfigure some non-conference games with those leagues that are willing to move to the spring. I mean, maybe the AAC and the Pac-12 do it together and they play each other in non-conference games. But here's my thought. Mark, what's the whole reason to play these games? I mean,
money.
Let's cut to the chase again.
A gate.
Television money.
I mean, just read, David, just to amplify your point, just read that even though baseball is going on, their talks, I just got an email this morning, 40 to 50% loss in revenue because of the gate.
Yeah.
That's for Major League Baseball.
Right.
So you're not pulling any punches. It's money.
Now, I think that's high. I do. I think that's high, and that the owner, that money, those figures are coming from the owners, once again, feeding the media because they have, they get their information out. The teams do better than the players get their information out. But the point to play these games, there's two revenue streams in college sports. There's the TV revenue, and then there's the gate revenue. Well, I don't know what you all think the gate is going to be in the fall, but I think the gate would be bigger in the spring. And now, when you say spring, you got to say winter/spring. Because, I mean, let's be honest. It's not like we can wait till... because in the South, there is no such thing as winter. Winter's 3 days in late December or early January. All right. But for the rest of the country, if you will, I mean, winter goes till April 1st.
Well,
or maybe mid-April.
And I'll be frank with you. It goes in the South, too. It's just different. I mean, in Georgia, it rains every damn day for about 3 months. It's miserable to go to a game on a Saturday when it's 48 degrees and sleeting. So when are you planning on starting?
I think, well, here's the deal. I got to get my games done by the end of April. So I'm thinking of February through April season. That we're back practicing in January, the beginning of second. They come back from Christmas break, and guys work out for a month. All right. And then they play their conference games. I would start either the weekend in between the conference championship game and the Super Bowl, or like the XFL tried to, I'd start the weekend after the Super Bowl. And I would play my non-conference or my conference games. And if I have one or two non-conference games, that'd be great. That'd be fantastic. But in the case of the Pac-12, and I think also of the AAC, don't they both play 9 conference games?
Yes,
so they play one more conference game than the SEC does and the ACC. So to me, first off, that's 3/4 of a season. But here's the second thing, Mark. I mentioned those two conferences specifically for this reason. From a television standpoint, they're 5th and 6th in terms of conferences and exposure.
I got you.
I mean, and so now you move your games to the spring. You take this coronavirus issue and you basically shelve it. All right? Let everybody else deal with it, number one. Number two, hey, you've got television contracts with Fox and ESPN, but what do you normally run up against? You run up against a bunch of conflicts, and they pat you on the head and tell you all these other conferences and teams are better than you. We're going to show their games. Well, in February and March, what are you going up against?
Well, in March, you're going up against March Madness, David.
Well, you are.
I mean, you laid this out. I've been just patiently waiting. That's why I was very curious of your start time. So you got February. Now you're telling me in the AAC and in the Pac-12, where they actually may care more about basketball than football. I know football drives the train, David. I'm not a moron. But these conferences care a great deal about basketball. In fact, it's their best sport. So the football team would take second fiddle in its own conference to the tournament. And places, and it works in some places, the AAC teams in Florida certainly would benefit. But Memphis, Temple, Cincinnati, Tulsa, these are not ideal places to play February football. Washington, for that matter, Eugene, Oregon, for that matter. So there's a lot of
absolutely
a lot of wrenches in your theory that I personally don't like because of weather. And I'm not just slamming it. I'm merely pointing out that I think that there are some flaws. I would have loved the idea, but I don't think you can start it in April. I don't think you can go April, May, June. I'd love to.
I don't think you could do a baseball season. You know, it is one of the things that never gets talked about. I mean, there's many college senior softball and baseball player who will play for an additional month, sometimes 6 weeks beyond when they've graduated. I mean, their venture into the real world, they're not quite ready to start it yet because they're still playing baseball and softball games. Okay, so yes, in an ideal world, Mark, we'd push this to, March, April, May, if we could. One of the things I would do, I would concede, I'd schedule a bye week for the first weekend of the NCAA tournament if I were running these conferences and I moved it to the spring. One of those weekends, because there's only 16 schools, there's only 8 schools left the following weekend playing basketball, number one. So there's a good chance that my school, nobody in my conference is going to be playing the next weekend, number one. And number two, also those games take place on that Saturday in particular pretty late in the day. They start like 5, 6 o'clock.
You're right.
I could play football that second Saturday. I could play football all day.
AAC more so than Pac-12. But yes, right. I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
And fortunately, since the tournament's on Turner and CBS, and I've got my deals, both of them, with ESPN and or Fox, then I don't have any conflicts there. So it's just a thought.
No,
because you will get better exposure. And I also think, Mark, you'll get a bigger gate, despite what you brought up, which is very valid, that weather's going to be a bigger concern for a spring football season. But Mark, the gate could be 0 in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, the gate's going to be bigger than 0. But David, maybe it's going to be 0 in the fall. We don't know that.
Could be.
Right.
I said could be.
I think that the gate's problem. I think the other big problem that you have, and again, the benefit is that we're talking about the AAC and the Pac-12 because they do not put a lot of players into the National Football League. So that's a benefit. But you're also dealing with a whole lot of seniors that the combine's going on, and guys are thinking about going to the NFL. So I don't know how you resolve that. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm not saying that seniors can pull out and go right to the combine if they're ready and forego their senior season.
Well, and unfortunately for them, the combine's in March. And in theory, we're playing.
Right, but if I'm a senior getting ready for the NFL, I'm leaving my team and going to the combine.
Okay. And if that's one of the things, if we lose a handful of guys because they're like, hey, I don't know what to tell you. This gets in the way of me preparing to become an NFL player, and that's basically what I'm here for. I get it. Hey, it's a coronavirus year. We're all doing the best we can. And if we lose you because of it, I understand. I wish you the best. I really do. We'll always consider you one of us. It's not perfect, Mark. It's far from perfect.
Well, 2020 is far from perfect.
Exactly. And what it does do, though, is it'll get you much better television exposure. And that's half this battle.
I mean, especially in February. This is where I'm totally with David. I don't know how March and April work. I don't. But for February, if you think of it in terms of, Fox and ESPN, they're doing all of this Super Bowl coverage. And hey, 1 week after the Super Bowl, the Pac-12 season kicks off, USC and Washington. Ooh, that's got a little meat on the bone.
I would want to schedule some games. We talk about week 0 now. I would want to put a 4-gamer together for that last weekend in January, which is the empty football weekend, the weekend in between conference championship and Super Bowl. If I'm the Pac-12 and or the AAC, and I would
series against USC and UCLA,
that's what I would want to do.
We just put as many initials together as is humanly possible, and we let them battle it out on the football field. That I could be for. And you're right, David. That's a great time to do it because the dead week needs football. And if you were to give us, quote unquote, big time college football there, I think that would be a great move. And the networks would jump all over it.
And I understand. UCF USC is not USC Alabama. I get it. But you know what? last weekend of January, it might work for us. And how many of us, once we get to the conference championship games in the Super Bowl, we're longing for a little bit more football. I think we would be more receptive to spring college football than we've been to spring pro football, especially during a coronavirus year. But I mentioned those conferences in particular. And yes, Mark, in theory, they're taking themselves out of the national championship picture. I mean, the rest of the sport could go, guys, I don't know what to tell you, but, we're going to play in the fall and we're going to play our conference championship games. And I mean, if you're basically saying you're going to play during basketball season, then you're not going to be eligible for the playoff. But let's be honest here.
The AAC's not eligible for it anyhow.
Right. I mean,
they're really not.
UCF didn't lose a regular season game for 2 years, and they didn't come close to sniffing the playoff. Okay, so what are the odds that an AAC team's going to be in the playoff? And also, let's be now, granted, the Pac-12, they had Washington get in 2016, and they've got a couple teams that have been close. And so if you're USC or you're Washington or you're Oregon or what have you, I mean, that would be tough to, quote unquote, not be able to play for a national championship. And also, you're taking yourself out of playing in a Rose Bowl and all that. But to me, if I'm running an athletic department, if I'm running a conference, do I just keep on keeping on here and hope things work out? Or do I take control of this situation and go, we're opting out, kind of. We're opting out on the national championship picture. We're opting out on the bowl games, but we're going to have a season and we're going to have a conference championship game. I mean, think about it. You could sell we're going to play 9 conference games and then a conference championship game. I mean, you're going to play 3/4 of your season. You're just going to do it. And for those of you that don't want to play because you want to get ready for the NFL and the combine and this, that, and the other thing, okay. Hey, we wish you the best of luck.
I think the key to your proposal here, David, is a willing partner. I don't know if you could do it with one conference. I do think the key, as you talked about, you had the AAC in the Pac-12. And I think that that's the perfect mix because I don't think the Big 12 would do it. Their conference commissioner seems hell-bent on starting on time through everything he said over the course of the last few weeks. So I can't imagine that the Big 12 would join you. Your apprehension would be, and I think you could get around it, if Jim Delaney's still running the Big 10, I don't know if the Pac-12 could get away with it, the power that Delaney had. That may not be the case right now with the new commissioner in the Big 10. The dynamic has changed slightly there. But, David, the key is you need a partner because without those games, week 0, as you call it, in January, I don't think it works quite the same way.
And the reason I bring this up is very quietly, didn't get widely reported last week. Some conferences reached out to the NFL. Remember, there's not a commissioner of college football. There's not a Jim Delaney to pick up the phone and call Roger Goodell and be able to talk to him on, hey, you run the NFL, I run all of college football. But a couple of conference commissioners reached out and said, hey, if we got to do this spring football thing, would you be willing to push back the draft? Because they thought about what we just talked about. Whereas, hey, if you got the combine and the draft, some kids are going to opt out playing for us and they're going to get ready to go be pros.
They're going to go to IMG for the year.
Right. And the NFL reportedly told those conference commissioners, yeah, we ain't moving anything back.
Shocker.
I don't know what to tell you.
David, we had a lot of different ideas for a poll question.
Yep.
I loved your thought about doing something in regard to the Redskin team name, but I don't know what the exact question is, and we know that it's going to happen, so I'm not sure what the question is. And I cannot get away from this question this morning. So I will take all the heat, all the blame, all of the comments.
Okay.
But if you had to pick one as a playing partner for 18 holes, who would you rather be paired with? Patrick Reed or Bryson DeChambeau? Can't help it. I just can't help it.
Congratulations. You've paid $10,000 to be in the Pro-Am, and your partner is blank.
I didn't realize Patrick Reed, because I had the early round golf stuff on, And right at 3 o'clock when it goes to CBS, they've been running Faraday nonstop because they don't have the LPGA and all these other tours that they typically would show. Patrick Reed did a Faraday. Now, I don't know how you do an hour show and not get into him about the family and the cheating, but somehow I'm guessing you had to.
Yeah, I doubt Faraday went there.
Right. What's the point of doing the interview if I can't get into the good stuff?
Right. Well, Reed, probably one of his conditions on doing the interview was, I'm not going to talk about my family situation.
Right. Or me cheating.
Well, I will say, though, he had the incident. He's had a couple incidents in the last 6 to 8 months. I think that's fair game. Okay, that's fair game. Okay, and you show what happened this year, and then you say, well, and Patrick, people already have their suspicions about you. So now once this happened, what are you thinking? What did you say to your fellow tour pros? I mean, did you see the shot a couple weeks ago that somebody threw out on Twitter in which Patrick Reed was off in the woods on the right-hand side, and Dustin Johnson made sure to walk all the way across the fairway and just stand there and watch him?
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Was the most telling shot. Someone took a still of their television, basically.
Yep.
It was the most telling shot. I mean, because look when we get that RBC commercial about DJ and all of the things he thinks about, I don't laugh. I hold my gut and start cracking up because I don't think two things go through Dustin's mind the entire round other than she's hot. So the fact that Dustin went over to watch Patrick Reed, of all of the players on tour, Dustin seems like he doesn't give two blanks about anything while he's playing golf.
No. Well, remember, he shows up at Colonial when the PGA Tour restarts after 3+ months, which have been doing, quote, whole lot of nothing. And then played like he had the clubs in the garage for the last 3 months. And then won 2 weeks later because he's fairly talented. Could it have been a better restart for the PGA
No.
Tour? I mean, remember, Tiger hasn't played.
And David, they just keep pointing out all of these players that are 24, 25, 26. I mean, the game of golf's in a good spot right now. There are just a plethora of really talented young golfers out there.
And when you're the Justin Roses and the Sergios and the DJ is 36 now. I mean, man, you're starting to feel old in a hurry. You're like, man, it's not going to be easy out here these next few years.
You got Morikawa, who just looks like he does nothing wrong. Wolf's 24 years old. Victor Hovland's 23 years old. I mean, this tour is set right now with some really talented young players.
So the poll question, if you had to pick one as a playing partner for 18 holes, who would you rather be paired with, DeChambeau or Patrick Reed? I think DeChambeau is going to win in a nutshell.
I do too, but I think it'll be a little closer than you did. Had to help the daughter there with the peanut butter. Couldn't get the lid off. She's down to make herself the breakfast of champions. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Really?
Well,
a PB&J to start the week for breakfast?
That's what she has for breakfast every day because you're not supposed to bring the peanut butter to school. You know, the whole allergen thing. So she likes her PB&J. That's her go-to breakfast. She makes it herself. A little glass of orange juice, peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Wow, that is solid right there.
Hey, she's 6 and she makes her own breakfast. Not only a golden apple, but continuing my run. Looking for Father of the Year.
You are just trying to put certificates on the wall, aren't you? Trying to replace that bookshelf behind you.
Yep, I'm going to make them all up myself.
I'm just wondering, will the Baseball Hall of Fame book go away or the picture of Secretariat? What goes away?
Secretariat's going away next. We'll get something else over here as we get closer to another event. I might even just put Phil Steele's College Football Magazine over my shoulder for a week.
Oh, you got 5 of them over your right shoulder.
I know.
So.
They're the important things here. Some pictures of family, picture of Secretariat, one of the greatest athletes of the 20th century, and the Phil Steele College Football book.
Keith Smith to talk NBA coming up in a moment. But first, and this is the truth. The whole truth and nothing but the truth. All right. Mark and I have an LLC together. All right. And we have a lot of activity in the LLC. A lot of activity. And by a lot of activity, I believe our last 3 purchases are the Phil Steele magazines for 2019, the company Christmas dinner.
Yep.
All right. And then the Phil Steele magazines for 2020.
Sounds right.
I believe those are our last 3 purchases.
Over 12 months.
By our LLC.
Hanging on by a thread. Miller and Moulton.
Priorities, Phil Steele and food.
That's right.
That's how we roll here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
So Fox Bet came out with something. It's called spread value of coaches. How many points is your coach worth? And the names at the top are not surprising. Bill Belichick is worth a field goal. What? Number 8 is Mike McCarthy? Did you know that Mike McCarthy's winning percentage plus a Super Bowl is higher than Pete Carroll's, John Harbaugh's, and Andy Reid?
Colin Cowherd. Weekdays at noon on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Even in my 80s, every day
Bet
is exciting
number or
and
Aaron
enjoyable.
Rodgers
When I
bet
developed cataracts years ago, I couldn't see well underwater. You can have the best gear
And
and know
McCarthy
the
even
best
had a
dive
couple years
spots.
of Favre.
If your eyes aren't the best, it's just not the same. And Dr. Scheibo knows that.
Knowing how much Jimbo cares about diving, it was a privilege to fix his vision.
It's great to know that we got eye doctors in our area that care just as much about me as I care about being in the water.
Hi, this is Dr. Scheibel from Community Eye Center. My partner, Dr. Spatafor, and I want to remind everybody, don't be a spreader. The coronavirus is so tiny, 100 million particles
be a
fit on the
spreader.
head of a pin. As we run around in our trucks and cars and play golf and go fishing and go to work and do the things we like to do, we are spreading the virus. The virus can only move with us. Over 65, diabetes, COPD, all these folks will be hurt severely by this virus. Wash your hands, be careful, don't be a spreader.
Don't walk, run to Galliana Kia in Fort Myers. New SUVs, just $199 per month. Galliana Kia is desperate for used cars. So
Who knew La Bamba could stay on as a car jingle for over 2 decades?
Kia needs your trade and more, so we'll flat out give you more.
Maybe 3. I mean, La Bamba, the movie, came out in the late
Get
80s.
you out of your old car and into a new Kia for less. 2020 Kia Sorento SUV lease, $249 per month. 2020 Kia Sportage lease, just $199 per month. Worried about your credit? Don't
What pick
sweat.
are you talking about, John? I don't know.
And make at least $2,000 per month. Our lenders can get you approved, but hurry.
Yeah, like I said, it's been making the run through the movie channels. I've watched it like 3 times in the last 2 weeks.
Parkway on US 41 in Fort Myers. Open every day, including Sunday. Call 239-481-2600. Galliana Cars.
Brian Setzer's a terrible actor. It's the one thing that you can take from La Bamba.
36 monthly, 16,000 miles per year, $24.99 to sign plus tax.
The reason they only gave him 1 line.
It's Kaylee Kobe with your Kobe Cooling Tip of the Day. It's summertime, so it's hot. Make sure you change your AC filters every month and have your air conditioners cleaned twice a year by Nate certified mechanics, like my dad. All the mechanics at Kobe Cooling are Nate certified because you deserve the best. If your AC stops working, turn it off and call 239-482-1542 and relax. We will take it from there. 24/7, same low prices, never no return charge. When you think of air conditioning companies, we hope you'll think of Kobe Cooling.
Hello?
Kevin, good morning. Mark Miller and David Moulton in Southwest Florida.
Hey, it's Keith.
Keith, I'm sorry. I've done that twice. I've called you. I'll get it right by the time we go on the air, I promise.
It's
Jesus.
all good.
It's Monday. It's a 3-day weekend, and it's early. I apologize, my friend. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
How was the 4th? Anything good?
It was, low key and chill, but that's what we needed.
Yep. That's it. We gonna start this thing? How confident are you we play basketball in 3 weeks?
I less confident than I have been, but I think we're definitely going to start it. Whether we finish it, that's the question in my mind. But it's definitely going to start. Teams arrive here in the next few days, so we're going to start for sure.
It is crazy the number of places getting shut down on a daily basis. It is just
Yep. I think in some ways, though, if more shut down in the immediate area around Walt Disney World, that would give folks maybe even more confidence that they can pull this off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you may be onto something. It is. Well, we've had the Raptors here. That's what I was going to put at the beginning of the show, David. Did anybody see a Raptor out and about in the last 3 days? Did any Raptors break the bubble?
Oh, yeah. I don't think so.
Want to see more?
They're at
Go to
the.
myshowerdoor.com.
They're in Naples.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
It's a long way away from the strip clubs.
It's Miller and Moulton. You're live.
Halfway home on this first Monday of July. It is the 6th. Hope you had a good 4th of July weekend, or at least the best that you could make of it during these times. Thanks so much for being with us, Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Jason Sobel, a little over a half an hour to talk golf. Andy Poland, as we head to our nation's capital an hour from now, from the change that is coming to the Redskins team name. But first, Keith Smith covers the NBA. You can, follow him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA, and he covers the NBA for, a variety of places like NBC Sports, Yahoo, and RealGM.com, RealGM.com. Keith, how are you and the family holding up in Orlando these days?
We're doing well. We've avoided any of the troubles that have been going on, and we're doing okay. Thank you. How about you?
Well, we are doing the same, at least on this show. We are holding up fairly well. So I don't think we've talked in about 3 weeks. All right. Since then, teams have shown up for their own training camps, whether it be at team facilities or at someplace else. And they're on the verge, 48 hours or so, of all heading to Orlando. Your feeling about the bubble and the season now as compared to 3 weeks ago, how would you describe it?
I'm still just as confident everyone's going to get here and they're going to start. Less confident that they are going to finish than I have been. I just think things have exploded in the immediate area here in Central Florida as far as cases of coronavirus. Teams have had so many coronavirus cases. They expected some positives. I don't know that they expected, the number that they had that have now shut the practice facilities down for about a third of the teams that are headed to Florida. The Sacramento Kings late last night became the 7th team. So that's 7 out of 22 have shut things down and won't go back into the practice facilities until after they travel here to Walt Disney World. So it's I have less confidence that they're going to be able to actually finish this thing, because while the NBA is not dictated, what the number of cases or number of cases on an individual team needs to be to shut it down, we know that there is a sense that they will shut it down at some point if they feel that it's no longer safe to continue on.
From a basketball standpoint, is there anything more interesting to you than whether or not Brooklyn fields a team and can make the playoffs? I mean, the East was done. Washington really had no shot, but I don't know if Brooklyn can field a competent team to hold off Washington. It's one of the storylines that I know neither of them have a shot to win the title, but to me it's fascinating for the end of this regular season.
Yeah, it really is. And I know some folks have said, well, we knew Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant weren't playing. Well, that's true. We did know that, but we didn't know about Wilson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan, 2 starters, and then Spencer Dinwiddie, who not only is a starter, but is arguably the Nets' best player this year. We don't know if he's going to play or not. Now, he has been his Twitter feed is a really good one to check out, because what he has done is he's chronicled every day what's happened since he tested positive for coronavirus. He's gone through day by day and put up tweets about what's going on with him and how he's feeling and those kind of things. And he did say last night, excuse me, that he is planning to head to Florida, after, but he'll have to do it on his own if everything checks out okay. So, in the next day or so. So that's, really interesting. But yeah, all Washington needs to do is get to within 4 games to force that play-in. And then once you're in the play-in spot, they may have such an advantage by then that the Wizards may pull off what was once thought to be, completely impossible.
And I believe that the Wizards right now are 5.5 behind Orlando and 6 behind Brooklyn. So they need to make up 2 games on Brooklyn, I believe, in the 8-game restart. And if they do, in theory, they will then get a chance to
they'll have to win the 2 play-in games, because if you're the 9 seed, you have to go 2-0, whereas the 8 seed only has to win 1 of the 2 games. But it looks as if Washington will be fielding a better team than Brooklyn will be when this thing resumes. Keith Smith covers the NBA. He's kind enough to join us here on Miller and Moulton. Isn't the next domino whether or not a big-time player, one that would alter whether or not a team is a very good team or now they become beatable, whether or not one of those players, a star player, comes down with the coronavirus? Isn't that really what we're waiting for? I think we're waiting for it in all of the major sports here. Same with baseball. If a Mike Trout or an Aaron Judge comes down with the coronavirus. Keith, it's a terrible thing to be waiting for, but I feel as if in a sport in which so few people, determine the outcome like they do in basketball, you get the wrong guy to get the coronavirus and be out for 10 days. You could be done.
Yeah, no, and that's unfortunately, that's one thing that some teams are preparing for is what do we do? And that's why Nikola Jokic, he's not quite the true superstar, but the Denver Nuggets were somewhat thankful that if he was gonna be found positive with coronavirus, that happened when it did, and that hopefully he'll be cleared up and ready to go by the time games start in Orlando, and by the time especially meaningful games in the playoffs start for the Nuggets. But teams are looking at it, especially if it's a superstar on one of those contending teams, a LeBron James, a Giannis Antetokounmpo, any of the Clippers, stars, James Harden, Jason Tatum from the Boston Celtics, Kyle Lowry from the Raptors. Those are the guys that people are looking at and saying, if one of those guys goes down, what does the NBA do? And the NBA has continued to say, hey, we play on, and it'll move forward. And I think that is what they're going to do. We saw that in the NBA Finals last year. Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson both went down with injuries that knocked them out. But, that's traditional, and that's just the way you think through these things. But here, yeah, it's definitely going to be curious. And the sad, unfortunate reality is many expect that it will happen.
Seems almost impossible for it not to happen, really, at this point. With that being said, then, is there a team that, has an advantage over that? Like you mentioned Lowry from Toronto, but Toronto seems to be, the lacking the most star power and still really good, where it's one guy for a lot of other teams. Do you put an edge to someone in this situation because we think a few guys are going to go down?
Yeah, I think a Toronto and a Boston could be really tough if other teams lost stars or if they lost somebody, because those teams have played without their main guys for large chunks of this year. The Raptors have never been healthy altogether. Boston's only had a handful of games with all their main players together. So I think those teams have learned how to win. The Celtics, if they advance into the second round and then into the conference finals, they found out the other day for certain that they're going to be without Gordon Hayward for probably about a week's worth of games, because he is going to head home for the birth of his 4th child. And that means leaving the bubble. And then if you leave the bubble with permission and you register the negative tests and all that, you can get back with about 4 days of quarantine, because the belief is, all right, you left, we knew where you went, you tested fine, get back in here and go. But that's going to be tough. And that's something that, had this been a regular season moving along, he would not have had to go anywhere, because it would have happened in the off season. So those are the other things that I think are the unintended consequences of this that people are trying to manage and figure out is, wow, we're really, we're facing some different sort of stuff here beyond just, illness and injury that, really take place in over off seasons that we're just not expecting to happen here.
And if you missed our interview last week with Nick Nurse, the head coach of the Raptors, you could hear it in his voice, how just thrilled he is that everyone is healthy. Because if you haven't been following the Raptors this year, they've basically had every key player miss at least a month of the season. And yet they still were on pace to win 59 games, and they have the second best record in the Eastern Conference. I hate to do this. We try to stay away from this whenever possible on this show. But I'm going to mix sports and politics here a little bit. The NBA is going to allow their players to make
whatever statements that they want to make on the back of their jerseys. The NBA is going to paint Black Lives Matter on the floor, but the NBA has got a China problem still, and China's been in the news a lot here in the last few weeks. Do you think that the NBA is going to just pull the plug on China? Because otherwise, I mean, they've already been accused of being hypocrites. But if they don't do something about China here now, Keith, with what's gone on in the last few weeks, it's not just being accused of being hypocrites. I mean, I'm wondering if you're the NBA, do you try to save face here by doing something proactive?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think, it's obviously a complicated situation, and there's a huge financial stake of the NBA continuing on in China. We know that just the Daryl Morey comments or tweet that sparked everything earlier this year, how much money that costs the NBA, and now you're a league that is facing loss in revenue due to coronavirus, and those kind of things. So I wouldn't expect anything while they're finishing out this season, unless something really forces their hand. If a player brings it up, or if a media member really pushes it and it becomes a prevailing story for the NBA, then maybe they do something different. But I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to focus on social justice matters here in this country, and that's with the Black Lives Matter being painted on the court, the jersey messages that the players, that they gave them a set of phrases and words that they can pick from. Because just allowing it to be completely freeform, that was not going to happen. There's just way too much censorship that would have had to happen there, and those kind of things. But yeah, I do find it very interesting, and I think it's coming to a point with the situation in China where they're going to have to figure that out. But I think it's there's only so many things you can handle at a time, and I think the NBA is probably going to say, let's leave that one for a little bit later.
On that note, they're going to play anthems before every game. We talked about this. They thought maybe was there going to be an anthem at the beginning of the day. Any more on the anthem and the players? Because this does coincide with their social justice movement.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything official yet. Now, what's going to be interesting is the way they do it in Summer League, when you're going to play up to 5 games a day in the same gym. They just play it once at the very beginning of the day, and then that's it. And then they move along all the way through. And that is, it is going to be kind of interesting to see the approach that they take with it here in Florida, because you're playing at most 2 or 3 games in the same gym. You're not at any point playing, the whole day long. But yeah, it's going to be, interesting to see. I think there is some folks who hope that they play it, and then that not only do they play it, but they televise it, and that allows the players to make a message during that. And then there's others who say, let's use this as the opportunity to move away from playing the anthem. It's interesting if you talk to folks from overseas that love American sports, especially there's a lot that love the NBA. It confuses them to no end that we play the anthem before every single sporting event. They don't understand it. It's not something that's done in other countries. That's reserved for international competition and international play. So it is kind of interesting to see if maybe the NBA looks at this and says, you know what? It might be time here for us to consider doing something different, and maybe they can be a trendsetter, which they're very much not afraid to be.
Now, is the rule still on the books, though? I mean, you're not allowed to protest in any way during the anthem. I have not heard that Adam Silver and anybody has changed that. So is that part of why the NBA is like, listen, you can put messages on the jersey, we're going to put something on the court, but the rule still stands. You got to stand at attention for the anthem.
Yeah, that was really brought in after Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf several years ago. There are 2 things that have been done. One is you need to stand respectfully at attention, and they allowed him. He prayed during it, if you remember, after his initial, issues that went on with that. Adam Silver, when he was asked about it it was probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, he said, our rules currently don't allow for that. And that was the interesting point there is a lot of people said, oh, the whole allow here, this is what you're going to allow. I went with the currently, because I think he was kind of making a case there of, hey, we're open to change. Maybe this is a conversation that needs to happen. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'm not sure what they'll do right now. We know it's a fine for players, and there might be some players that say, I'll take the fine, but I'm going to kneel during this, or and I believe the option is still in the book for players to just not come out and not be present, to head back to the locker room area during the playing of the anthem. Now that gets really tight because you pretty much play the anthem and then go almost right into tip-off. There's usually a couple minutes of talking with the coach. So, so it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because it's definitely going to be something people are going to have eyes on for sure.
Keith, as always, we appreciate your time and your insight. All the best to you and your family. Stay safe, be well, and, good luck trying to cover the NBA within 15 minutes of your home while not being allowed to be there to cover the NBA.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We did put in for credentials, not the bubble credential. That's very cost prohibitive, but the single game credentials. So hopefully I'll be able to give a little bit of a flavor of what it's like to play games in an empty gym, but we'll see where that ultimately goes. But thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Y'all stay safe, you and yours.
Keith Smith, who covers the NBA for a few people. Okay, we can relate to this, Mark. NBC Sports, Yahoo, and RealGM.com, RealGM.com. Follow Keith on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith Smith, NBA. Miller and Moulton. Jason Sobel covers golf for the Action Network. He'll join us a few minutes after the top of the hour. Today was the day when is next here on Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Drive home with the Doug Gottlieb Show.
The holding out by Ezekiel Elliott seems to have empowered Jamal Adams. It's like we only tell half a story. Well, what about the fact that Jamal Adams is not a running back? His career should be longer. He's a different kind of safety. If they signed Jamal Adams to a long-term deal, they would want him at a discount, not retail.
Doug Gottlieb, afternoons at 3 on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
When I see something beautiful, I want to capture that moment. A photo really is worth more than 1,000 words. That photo isn't very good if it's not in focus.
Mrs. Buck loves photography, but glasses were getting in her way.
Even though photography is just a hobby, it's something I really care about, and it's good to know that Dr. Liss cared about me just as much.
We really don't want bad vision to keep people from doing the things they love.
Community Eye Center really does have the most caring doctors in sight.
Hi, this is Dr. Scheibel from Community Eye Center. My partner, Dr. Spatafora, and I want to remind everybody, don't be a spreader. The coronavirus is so tiny, 100 million particles fit on the head of a pin. As we run around in our trucks and cars and play golf and go
Don't be a spreader.
Things we like to do, we are spreading the virus. The virus can only move with us. Over 65, diabetes, COPD, all these folks will be hurt severely by this virus. Wash your hands, be careful, don't be a spreader.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Core-Tec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Core-Tec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Core-Tec that you have. You also have other Core-Tec products as well.
We also carry the Core-Tec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Core-Tec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Core-Tec
Frosted Flakes is trending this morning, and I've been wondering why myself, as Twitter's been on. And I have no idea who Desmond James is, but he's got a video of a guy running the wrong way down an escalator, just flying past people, and he says, me trying to check Twitter to make sure Frosted Flakes isn't trending for somehow being racist, running for president, or catching the Rona. I do love Frosted Flakes. I don't know. I think it could be the best cereal on the planet.
Starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information, or visit towboatuscapecoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water. When we talk the talk,
This is what we talk about.
He's talking about right and wrong.
we back it up.
Talk about what you know.
We're Fox Sports Radio, and when we talk the talk,
A lot of sports stuff.
Frosted Flakes or Captain Crunch.
I hate Captain Crunch.
Fox Sports
I never had it regularly. Like my mom didn't buy the sugary cereals. For as much junk as she bought me and fed me, she didn't do it with cereals. She pretty much bought Rice Krispies and Cheerios.
Yeah, we did the 6-pack of the sugar. You got the Frosted Flakes, your Apple Jacks, your the honeycombs, Lucky Charms, or not Sugar Smacks, not honeycombs, Sugar Smacks. The corn flakes that I never ate, they would just stay in there. And there would always be a stockpile of those cornflakes.
Yeah, I would go Frosted Flakes over Captain Crunch.
They're not even in the same league. I mean, Captain Crunch, Arch, it's a minor league cereal at best. I'll take Apple Jacks over Captain Crunch. I'll take Honey Nut Cheerios over Captain Crunch. I will take Sugar Smacks over Captain Crunch.
I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home, and that'll put you in a good mood too.
I think Captain Crunch is better than that, Arch.
Affordable,
all right, but it's. I think Captain Crunch is like the Everblades.
There's one near you right now.
It's a solid, really good AA cereal.
Now back to Miller and Moulton. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Fun conversation there during the commercial break. If you were with us on YouTube or twitch.tv, our sugary cereals and which ones we enjoy more than the other.
Yeah, Archangels just started, because Frosted Flakes is trending on Twitter. And when something trends on Twitter, you have to wonder if it has the coronavirus, if it made a racist comment, or it's running for president. Those seem to be the three things that are happening. So, I just said Frosted Flakes, arguably the best cereal of all time. And Arch here wanted to take me out with Captain Crunch, and I don't know what to tell him. I think Captain Crunch at best is a solid minor league cereal.
I would agree with that. I just don't think it's low A ball. Okay, I think it's solid. I think it's AA.
Might even be the Durham Bulls. Might even be AAA. Started out as a Carolina League team and made its way up to AAA.
Our poll question today, if you had to pick one as a playing partner for 18 holes, who would you rather be paired with, Patrick Reed or Bryson DeChambeau? And right now, DeChambeau by a 2-1 margin, winning our vote.
Time now for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When, Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
We start in 1933 today. It was the first Major League Baseball All-Star game. When they played baseball in the summer. The American League wins 4-2 at Comiskey. Babe Ruth hits the first All-Star home run.
Fitting.
Today in 1941, the Yankees unveil a monument in center field to Lou Gehrig. They get a few more of them.
Yeah, now it's even a park.
1944, at the Barnum and Bailey's second performance, they had a circus tent fire. 168 people died. 1945, the Abbott and Costello film The Naughty 90s was released, featuring the longest version of The Who's On First routine. I don't care. It still plays, David.
Yes.
Still plays. It's still funny.
75 years later, it works.
You're darn right it does. 1956, MLB Commissioner Ford Frick decides that we should have an award to honor baseball's outstanding pitcher. The Cy Young was created. Maybe the most important day in the history of rock and roll today. The single most important day in music history, because it was today in 1957 that Paul McCartney went to check out this band called the Quarrymen at a church dinner. And that's where John and Paul would meet for the first time. 1965, the rock group Jefferson Airplane forms. And I only bring this up because I think they are far and away the most overrated, lousy rock band of the late 60s and early 70s. To the point where when they were the Starship, they sucked.
You feel better? You just wanted to get that off your chest, right?
I did.
Okay, good.
74, Jimmy wins Wimbledon, his first of 2.
He dominated in 74, won 3 Grand Slams that year.
1975, Art Wall Jr. becomes the second oldest to win a PGA Tour event, beating Gary McCord at the Greater Milwaukee Open. 1983, another All-Star game at Comiskey, another home run, this time by Angels outfielder Fred Lynn. God, every part of that sucks to say.
Also, it broke a long winning streak for the National League. They had won like 11 or 12 in a row. Also, I believe it was the first Grand Slam in All-Star game history off of Atlee Hammaker.
You are correct. First All-Star Grand Slam. 85, Martina beats Chrissy 4-6, 6-3, 6-2 for her 6th title. 86, Boris would beat Lendl to go back-to-back at Wimbledon. Also in 86, Bob Horner becomes the 11th player to hit 4 home runs in a game. And let's be honest, because of TBS, we all loved Bob Horner just a little bit.
Absolutely. Hit behind Dale Murphy. He was the cleanup hitter. Murphy hit 3rd.
David, you'll love this one. I know you remember it. 89, Mike Schmidt becomes the first retired player to be named a starter to the All-Star game. He elected not to play.
He had retired in late May in San Diego, and he was still on the ballot, and we voted him in anyway.
94, Forrest Gump released today. 2002, Serena beats her older sister. That's her first title. The next year, Roger Federer wins his first Grand Slam title. That was in 2002 and in 2003. If you were born today, you share your birthday with Nancy Reagan, born in 1921, Bill Haley and Merv Griffith, both born today in 1925. Pat Paulson, who is not running for president this year because he died 23 years ago, was born today in 1927. Ned Beatty always had the hardest part. You remember him from Deliverance, born today in 1937. Fred Dreyer, George W. Bush, and Sly Stallone, all born today in 1946. Willie Randolph, born today in 54. Ronnie Duguay in 57. That's for you, David. And Kevin Hart, born today in 1979. Zion Williamson is 20.
I think I'm wearing shorts that are older than him. Miller and Moulton. Jason Sobel to talk golf next.
Fred Dreyer, George W. Bush, and Sly Stallone are all the same age.
74, right?
Yeah.
Fred Dreyer, who went straight from the Rams to, what was it, Hunter?
Yes.
The TV show that he was.
Got it right.
He was executive producer of that show. He not just starred in it. He was the show. I mean, he made a ton of money off that. He was one of the first to do that.
When we do this,
it is a crazy, crazy day.
Crazy. There are other times.
Ron Duguay, La La Sastoon.
Something to make me look stupid. I mean, on purpose.
And then there are times when we do this.
Can we all agree now? Yes.
No. It's not possible.
No.
When these times go down,
We didn't have time, but when you said Pat Paulson, all right, and he's not running for president, and I was looking for 2 seconds to chime in and go, yes, but Kanye is.
Well, that's why I had to. I mean, Pat Paulson ran for president for 2 decades.
Yes.
And would have the ads that they would run in the Smothers Brothers car. Oh, come on. That's just legendary stuff right there.
7-passenger Dodge Journey SUV, just $19,990. Plus at Galliana Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, you can drive
Saw the GIF?
free for 3 months.
Yeah,
or
that's funny.
free for 6 years, and worry-free up to 100,000 miles. And our parts service and body shop are open to serve you. Summer clearance event at Galliana
Tell you
Chrysler
what,
Dodge Jeep Ram.
if you're Major League Baseball or basketball, I mean, you got to be looking at the NHL right now going, wow, you guys played this really well. You waited, and then you said, you know what? Canada.
Well, and Trudeau, you got to give him credit because, you know, a month ago he wasn't letting anybody in his country.
No.
The NHL wasn't going to happen anywhere in Canada. And he's, well, you know, on second thought,
Right.
maybe
Bettman called him up and said,
yeah,
what do you say you let in about, I don't know, 400 hockey players?
Right. Most of them are Canadian anyhow. There's going to be some Europeans and some Americans.
Right. What do you say?
What do you want me to just call him at like 02?
Yeah.
We'll get going. I'll kind of just give you a signal, turn my mic off.
Yeah, I'd give him maybe till 04.
Okay. Georgia just got McKitty, tight end grad transfer from Florida State. Yeah. Trey McKitty, a graduate transfer tight end from FSU.
Okay.
Is going to Georgia to play tight end.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller.
You know what? I'll try to bring you back some fish.
And Moulton.
Okay. You drop it off at the front door.
Probably in the mailbox. We'll pack ice.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? Hope you had a good 4th of July holiday. I'm sure it wasn't up to past 4th of July holiday standards, but hopefully you were able to spend it with some people that you wanted to and get out a little bit. Have a decent time at least once. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for being with us on this Monday, July 6th here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Jason Sobel, the Action Network, will join us coming up in a couple, 2-3 minutes to talk a little golf, which is our poll question today. If you had to pick one as a playing partner, 18 holes, who would you rather be paired with? Patrick Reed, who was the biggest villain in golf. It was Patrick Reed, but you could argue he has been passed on the outside with a full head of steam. Down the stretch they come by one Bryson DeChambeau.
And people would rather pay with Bryson because apparently his brand is more popular right now. And Bryson let everybody know about his brand Saturday when a cameraman had the audacity to film Bryson DeChambeau playing golf on a golf course in a PGA tournament event. The audacity of that cameraman to keep the camera on the guy who's been the best player on tour since we've reopened.
But to me, the most interesting thing, which we'll get into with Jason Sobel here in a moment, the most interesting thing, Mark, though, is his attitude, I don't believe, is just his and his alone. When he said, I understand he was just doing his job, and what he was trying to say is, but then there's a point where, hey, what you're airing on television maybe doesn't make us look good. And aren't we kind of, but you know, he's not the only golfer and he's not the only athlete in a major sport to think that, hey, are you sure you want to be showing us when we look bad? You're then helping to make us look bad. You're hurting our brand, which means you're hurting the sports brand.
And I don't think that they are.
Media partner. See, that's where you get whole into, hey, you're our media partner.
And first off, I didn't necessarily love Tiger throwing clubs, especially when they would hit the occasional fan. But I've got no problem with the guy slamming the club. I don't like the idea of the club getting into the crowd. That could hurt someone. But actually, Bryson DeChambeau hitting a terrible sand shot and then firing his club, I'm fine with. I want to see emotion. It actually makes me like him more, not less, because it shows that he cares. Now, I will say, Bryson proved what a bad, to me, he's just not good at getting fired up. Like when he gave that little yell after he made the 35-footer, he looked like a dork doing that too. Some guys just don't celebrate well. I don't know what to tell you.
I think it's the Hogan hat. All right.
Could
That's
be.
what I'm wondering. I don't know how cool you can look in the Hogan hat. Granted, it fits for golf, obviously, but I just don't know on the cool scale of 1 to 10 how well you come off. But he right now is playing golf better than anyone in the world. Hottest guy, I should say, on tour, and he won the Rocket Mortgage Motor City Open by 3 with a glorious final round of 7 under 65 yesterday to win by 3 over Matthew Wolff, who entered the final round with a 3-shot lead. DeChambeau with 7 straight top 10 finishes, and he picked up his 6th career tour win yesterday. And to talk about it and more is Jason Sobel, who covers golf for the Action Network. You can follow Jason on Twitter at Jason Sobel, TAN, which stands for the Action Network. Jason, as always, thanks so much for your time. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good morning, guys.
Well, good morning. And first off, let's start with the obvious, which is Mr. DeChambeau, who came in as kind of the biggest story in golf and made himself even bigger. Bryson DeChambeau and the dichotomy that was Bryson DeChambeau over the weekend.
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a guy with a lot of different layers. He's like part nerd, being into all the science, the math, and the analytics, and sort of part like kind of bro. He's hey, I'm all buffed up now. I'm gonna hit it a lot past you, and it is a dichotomy, as you say, and I think it's good for the game. He is the most polarizing player I've seen in a long time. I used to call Tiger Woods the most polarizing. I don't know, and this isn't anything against Tiger, and this isn't sort of absence of mind, but Tiger's not really polarizing anymore. I don't know that many people that root against him. It's everyone kind of wants to see Tiger Woods at the age of 44 going on 45 go out and win another major championship. That would be really cool, really fun to see. I don't know that he's necessarily got that sort of polarization factor anymore. Patrick Reed sort of has it, but I'm not sure that many people are rooting for Patrick Reed. Bryson really has this division of golf fans who I think a lot of them like what he's been able to do. They like his game. They like the fact that he's a little bit different, and he's not this cookie cutter just going about the game and going about his preparation the same way as everybody else. Then there are a lot of people who just say, man, I just don't like him. I don't like that he berated a cameraman the other day. I don't like that he's got this smug look on his face. I don't like that he thanks all his sponsors after he wins. I just don't like the guy, and that's okay. And I always say that I'd rather have guys that inspire passion within the game of golf. I think there are too many players, and it's always been this way, who you mention their name and everyone says, oh yeah, kind of like that guy. But no one's passionate about that player either way, whether they're in favor or against. And the fact that Bryson inspires passion amongst the masses might be the best thing that the game has going for it right now.
Jason, I think you're absolutely right. I couldn't get away from this poll question all morning. David tried, Redskins, all kinds of things. And I'm like, who would you rather play with 18 holes, Bryson or Patrick Reed? And Bryson is running away with it, and I didn't think it would be, thought it might be a little bit closer. And I'm fascinated by Bryson DeChambeau. I don't like him, but I'm fascinated by him. But help me out with what happened on Saturday. We have to protect our brand was kind of the message he threw out. And I have a problem with that. Jason, we know the golf media is maybe as passive as any group in regard to their sport. That you can't cover it too harshly because then you can't get close to the players. Does Bryson, in your estimation, have any there with what he said about protecting his brand?
No, not whatsoever. And I take a little offense to just you saying that. I'd like to think that I've shown a light on players over the years, and quite frankly, and this is sort of one of these old myths that you can't talk about Tiger, or you never get one-on-one time with him again. He'll never talk to you. Look, no one's getting one-on-one time with Tiger anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So write and say what you think, and quite frankly, when it comes to other players, I write and say what I think, and worry about that stuff later. And so if someone wants to be so petty as to not speak with me again because I wrote something about them, then I'll probably write that they won't speak with me. And I've never really had it happen. So I think that's a little bit of a myth, getting off on a little bit of a tangent there. But as far as Bryson, I think you have to understand sort of what everyone else's job is. And this was not a cameraman sneaking into the locker room and getting a private moment of Bryson throwing a little temper tantrum. This was not a cameraman going, following him into the porta potty on the golf course and seeing him throw a temper tantrum. This is in the middle of the workplace. This is like somebody going into their office and throwing a fit in the middle of the office and then saying, I don't know why everyone else is watching me. You guys should look away when I get mad because, I need a little privacy here in the middle of the office. And basically Bryson is in the middle of his workplace. The cameraman is in the middle of his workplace. And so he shouldn't have to stop doing his job just because Bryson decides at that very moment that he'd like to throw a little fit. So, I had a major problem with Bryson saying that. It just sounds immature. It sounds like he doesn't quite understand what everyone else is doing there. The job of any journalist, whether you're a cameraman, you're a writer, you're a TV broadcaster, anybody, the job is not to shine a positive light on the people that you're covering all the time. As you guys know, it's to show the public what's going on. It's to sort of uncover a little bit of that inside aspect. And Bryson, in my mind, did it to himself and then made himself look even worse by the non-apology afterwards.
He's Jason Sobel of the Action Network. Follow him on Twitter at Jason Sobel, TAN, in capital letters, standing, of course, for the Action Network. A two-part DeChambeau question here. One, do the fellow pros like him? But two, are any of the other fellow pros, even one, looking at him in the last month going, you know what? Maybe I need to bulk up. Maybe I need to add 20 pounds. I don't know about adding 35 or 40, but, he's on to something here. So, one, do his fellow pros like him? And two, do you know of anybody who quietly is like, well, I'm going to do what he did?
Yeah, so we mentioned him already sort of in the same vein as Patrick Reed. And I think as far as his interactions with players, I would say it's kind of on par with Patrick in that he probably doesn't have any really close friends who he's playing against on the tour on a regular basis. But I also don't think he's got guys, who simply won't talk to him and who hate him. And, they might kind of roll their eyes at him and, think he's a little quirky and things like that. I think he's too smart for everybody else. But honestly, Tiger likes playing practice rounds with him. Phil likes playing practice rounds with him. So, there are guys. It's not like guys are staying away from him completely. As far as the second part of that with guys trying to go through the Bryson blueprint, I absolutely think that if Bryson has massive success over the next 6 months, that we're going to see players in January of 2021 come back to the PGA Tour looking as if they're in one of those sort of bloated filters on a camera that make you look bigger, because I just don't see why they wouldn't try to do the same thing. And just wait, because Bryson's kind of figured this out. This is more math than science, but the math behind golf right now is that the analytical data shows you the further you hit it, the less club you have into the green, the better off you are, the more chances you have of making birdie, the more birdies you make, the better chance you have of winning. This is not anything that's sort of groundbreaking. We've known this for a while. Sort of dismisses the old myth of drive for show, putt for dough. And by the way, he's still putting really well. But
really well.
If he can dial it, he was first in the field in driving distance, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained putting. That's sort of unheard of. That's basically golf right there. His wedge game was not great after mashing all those balls 370, 380 off the tee. If and when he dials in his wedge game, watch out, because that's it. There's nothing else left. And so if he can hit wedges from 60, 70, 80 yards to within 5 feet of the hole on a consistent basis, watch out. He's going to win a lot. And yes, I absolutely believe that other players out there will say, look, he took a chance with his career. He was already a really good player, and he decided to gain all this weight to increase his swing speed to put on some mass, and it's helped him. Let me try to do the same thing to keep up.
You know, Mark, there have been athletes over the years in their sport. Lendl was the first one to really bring physical fitness to tennis. Okay, instead guys used to just play tennis. Well, Lendl became more of an athlete and others followed him. Tiger was the first one to really work out on a regular basis. And other golfers said, you know, I think I got to hit the gym. And that's why I wonder whether or not tour players, Mark, are going to follow DeChambeau.
Well, and I think your point, Jason, is if this keeps going, because the fact of the matter is, like him or not, you are absolutely right. We all watched Saturday and Sunday Bryson hitting the ball a country mile and not being able to hit wedges very close to the hole. My thing is, one, do you think Bryson will dial anything back so he has more full shots, if that's a better recipe for him? Or how much better do you I mean, his wedge game, is it 80%? Is it 70%? I mean, because he had some poor 100-yard shots yesterday that we look at these guys and expect them to do better. How much better can this wedge game get?
I think it can get much better. And to answer the first part of that, the last 3 weeks, so we went from Colonial to Harbor Town to TPC River Highlands, 3 of the shorter golf courses on the PGA Tour, and Bryson basically came out and said, look, I don't really understand how to play these golf courses right now because I can't go full bore. I can't swing as hard as I want to off the tee because I just don't have that much room to hit my ball. And so Detroit Golf Club this past weekend was the first time that Bryson was able to, as he calls it, unleash the Kraken. And he did that, and we saw the result. And so you've got it with more bigger golf courses coming up. Memorial he'll play next week, and then moving forward to the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open and the Masters, of course, where, hey, those are big ballparks, and you got a lot of room to go out there and hit it as far as you can. He's going to do that. And again, if you can go out and win golf tournaments with your wedge game being just sort of C-, and there's a lot of room for improvement. I see Bryson only going up from here as opposed to, he's not going to lose driving distance. Can tell you that much. He is not all of a sudden going, hey, I was hitting at 375, but now, I stopped drinking those shakes. I can only hit at 330. The driving distance isn't going anywhere. He's still going to be a good putter. Maybe this past weekend he putted a little bit better than he normally does, but he's still going to be a good putter for a long time. And so if he can dial in those wedges, there's room for improvement, and this thing can only go a little bit higher than he's got it right now.
Jason, another two-part question. Do you think it's helped the guys not having the fans? I think they're more relaxed on the weekend. There are very few bad weekend scores I see. I just sense that they feel less pressure because it just feels like they're out playing another round with their guys. And aren't we going to get fans at the Memorial?
Okay, so I think that it's less about the pressure and more about pace of play has been fantastic over the last 4 weeks. And I think a lot of that has to do with just no fans there, no one talking. You have to quiet someone down over a shot and, and sort of back away and then go hit. And then, fans are clapping. So the next guy has to wait his turn to hit his shot. It just takes a little bit longer. You get out of rhythm a little bit more. So I think not having fans has these guys in a nice, comfortable pace and rhythm, which has helped them play probably better golf on the weekends. As for Memorial, I just got a text about a minute before I came on the air. Last time I talked to you guys, there was some breaking news, and about 5 minutes after I came on, you guys said, oh, man, you didn't give us the breaking news. Well, I got this one about 2 minutes before I came on. Haven't gone anywhere with it, so it's still, I'm not reporting it yet, but I've heard a rumor so far that the Memorial Tournament next week will not indeed have fans. There will be no fans at the Workday Charity Open at Muirfield Village this week. The town of Dublin has mandated that everybody must wear a mask when outside. I'm not sure how that doesn't apply to PGA Tour players in a competitive event, but apparently it doesn't. But I've been told by somebody close to the situation that there will not indeed be fans at the Memorial Tournament next week. So I'm going to work on that story as soon as we get off the phone here. But if indeed that is true, then it's going to be a 6th straight event, and we've got more after that won't indeed have fans, including the PGA Championship.
Well, and that's where Jason, between now and Augusta, will there be a fan at a golf event?
I think so, but again, this is way above my pay grade.
Oh, right.
I'm guessing as to any sort of COVID-19 factors around here. I mean, for all we know, there are going to be 10 players who test positive this week, and the PGA Tour says, that's it, we got to shut it down, and there won't be golf, let alone golf with fans. And so I don't know. I mean, we're all guessing. I would love to give you an answer on some of this stuff and say, okay, here's the deal. We're going to have 2 more COVID cases this week, another positive next week, and then 3 the week after that. We're going to keep playing. We're going to have fans by the 3rd week of August. I don't know. I have no idea. And I think that's part of what makes this year, at least in golf, so intriguing. I mean, no one knows what's going on in any aspect of the world right now. We don't know what to expect a week from now, a month from now, 6 months from now. And so golf is just sort of a very, very small part of that. Yeah, sure, we'd love to see fans, but quite honestly, between us, it hasn't really affected my viewership as a fan of the game, as an observer of the game, to not have the get in the hole and the baba buoys and the mashed potatoes out there as guys are hitting shots. Like I said, they're playing at a nice, swifter pace than usual. I think they get into a nice rhythm. Yeah, you want spectators out on the course because that would mean the world is becoming a little bit more normal than it's been lately. But as long as they can continue playing without fans, I don't think anyone's going to have a massive problem with that.
Jason, full disclosure, I was part of Fox's USGA coverage, but does anyone in the golf world care? Okay, that, now all the majors are going to be on just 2 networks. David, 15 plus years ago, when ESPN lost golf and all the golf went on the Golf Channel, and he said, wait a minute, is this really a good thing for us if we take ourselves off of ESPN? I'm just wondering, does anybody in the golf world care that Fox tried golf and then decided, you know what, we're out? 2 networks and that's it.
I think the really hard part in Fox having the U.S. Open is that they didn't have any other golf, and apparently they had bid for the PGA Tour contract and didn't get it. But I think it's very hard. I mean, you wouldn't see one network that had the Super Bowl but didn't have any other NFL football games. It just doesn't. It doesn't really work. You have to have the rhythm and the cadence and the week in, week out ability of covering the sport the way you need to cover it to say, okay, well, now let's ramp it up for the big event. And Fox didn't have that on a weekly basis. I think they'd been greatly improved since first doing it in 2015 at Chambers Bay for the U.S. Open. But again, just not being able to cover golf on a regular basis, especially at the highest level. And I know they have the USGA contract with different events and amateur events and women's events, and but it's different when it's not the same players on a week in, week out basis. You don't have that continuity, and so not having that continuity, I think, just affected them where they'd have to almost parachute in and say, okay, we're going to cover one of the biggest golf tournaments of the year, and then we're gone, and we'll see you next year. I just think it makes it very difficult that way.
Agreed. Jason, thanks so much, as always, for your time. All the best. Stay safe, and hopefully we can talk again down the road.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.
Jason Sobel covers golf for the Action Network. You can follow Jason on Twitter at Jason Sobel, TAN, which stands for the Action Network. Jason Sobel, SOBEL. I've thought about this, Mark, and we've got Andy Pollin of 630 ESPN DC coming up in less than 10 minutes about the Redskins' likely name change. But the one thing that I do think, and most people didn't like Fox's coverage. We all know that. All right. But there were some voices that were part of their coverage that are no longer going to be a part of the sport. Okay. Steve Flesh, I thought, was a phenomenal on-course commentator. Curtis Strange, polarizing announcer. Some like him, some don't. But to hear Curtis Strange, who's very opinionated, okay, whether it's about club selection or what have you. Brad Faxon is an interesting guy. Faxon's got a lot of DeChambeau in him. He's like the mad scientist. All right. Brad Faxon would change drivers and putters in the middle of a round if they'd let him. I mean, I do think that the sport there's like 5 voices in it right now. That part of it, I think the sport could use a couple of new voices. Like I'm finding Faldo and Baker Finch they got nothing. I've watched these 4 weeks. They got what they said about DeChambeau 3 weeks ago is what they were saying this week. They got nothing new, not an original thought. They got nothing. Okay, that to me, I actually think is the biggest loss here.
And David, what's interesting to me when you say that, I think you're onto something. But if you asked 99% of golf fans, they would look at you and go, "Yeah, and I'm okay with that." People hate change. Particularly with their announcers. I mean, we found that, you know Joe very well. I like Joe because when we met him for the first time, I don't know if I was a Joe Buck fan when I met him the first time, but when we sat at the shootout and Joe was just kind of kicking it going, yeah, if I didn't have the breaks I did, I'd be pretty comfortable sitting here on a Friday afternoon. And that was the vibe I got from him. And I had friends that were there that said this, that walked away going, wow, he's pretty cool. I never thought he was that much of a regular guy. But the golf fan hated him. Just hated him. Period. Why? Because he was someone different, and it wasn't Jim Nantz. I don't know what to tell you. I definitely think you're right, but I think by and large, the golf fan just wants their normal guys.
No, I understand that. And it also, the golf audience is older. I mean, we're all, we're comfortable with our old chair. We're comfortable going to the same places and ordering the same stuff and being around the same people as we get older. And that's why there is so little change, particularly in a golf booth. But it was one of the things that I enjoyed, was that I thought we could hear some voices that we don't normally hear. And I actually think that golf television coverage could use a couple of new voices. We're probably about 5 years away from getting them. Miller and Moulton. Andy Pollin, 6:30 ESPN in D.C. will join us next. The Redskins apparently will no longer be the Redskins. We'll talk to Andy about it next here on Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Receiving over. Alexa, play Fox Sports
Steve
FM
Flesh
on TuneIn.
is so effing good as an on-course commentator. Now, he wouldn't do it full-time because he's still playing the Champions Tour, and is making a decent living. But,
nice job.
Man, is Flesh good.
Talk delivered to your speaker. This is easy. Just say, Alexa,
hello.
Play Fox Sports FM on TuneIn.
Finally, something worthwhile.
I didn't think it was going to be this easy.
I always joked with Flesh. Flesh should live down here. Flesh is conservative for Southwest Florida.
Don't cry over spilt milk, don't talk to strangers, and never make appointments with AC companies who telemarket you on the phone. They're bait and switch companies offering cheap services to get to your wallet. If you're telemarketed at your house, hang up. You can't perform a real service for $15 or whatever the fake offer is. Use companies that employ NATE certified mechanics and steer clear of any company with the words home services in the name. They're simply a salesman after a big commission. When you think of air conditioning companies, we hope you'll think of Kobe Cooling. No nonsense and no pressure. We're the company your neighbors use. License CACO 57313. Kobe, the most trusted name in the business since 1949. Call 239-482-1542. That's 239-482-1542.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lake O, and out 75 nautical miles. And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information, or visit towboatuscapecoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Floor Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Cortec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Cortec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortex that you have. You also have other.
So I go get lunch yesterday, David.
The Cortex
I was by myself.
like
I won't name the restaurants. It's not fair. But I'm sitting there, and the tables are a little closer than I would have liked for my liking, but whatever. I get my own little space, order my food. A couple sits down at the table closest to me. They're both sitting on the wall of a four-top. She proceeds to take her shoes off, kick her feet on the chair. So while I'm eating, all I have to look at is the bottom of this woman's feet.
I saw you take a picture.
What the are people thinking?
Oh, that's just...
Of course, when her food came, she put her feet back onto the table and put her shoes on. I almost threw up at one point when I was eating. Like, I gagged. Because I couldn't help it. Now the feet are just staring at me. But someone asked where, and I'm like, I'm not going to say the name of the restaurant. That's not fair. It wasn't the restaurant owner's fault that, and I think they were one of the waitress's parents, that his staff's family are pigs.
How you feel?
Pigs. We'll tell you this much. Maybe the cutest set of waitresses I've ever seen at a non-Twin Peaks Hooters type restaurant.
Where was this?
Little place in South Fort Myers.
Okay.
Better vision and a better life. Dial star 2020 from your mobile phone.
Want to take Jake there and see if he can meet one of them. My whole life's changed that way. I look at him and I go, boy, they'd be really cute for Jake. I swear to God, I don't know. I'm old now. I look at him and go, oh, she's a really cute girl. I wonder if Jake would like her. That's the only thing I think now. We had about a minute, Jero?
We're still finding a lot of roofs with
Yeah.
hurricane and windstorm damage.
All right, let's call Andy.
Inspection. Google DRM Roofing or call 239-332-14.
Hello.
Good morning, Andy. Mark and David in Southwest Florida. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
We are doing very well. Going on in about 15 seconds.
Okie doke.
Thanks for your time.
you.
No problem.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
28 minutes before the top of the hour. The good, bad, and ugly in a little less than 20 minutes here on Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming once again at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. He's Andy Poland of 630 ESPN in D.C. You can follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Poland and the number 1, and that's Poland's with 2 L's. Andy, thanks so much for your time. How are you and your family these days? You staying safe? Everyone okay?
Yeah, we're doing okay. My son is a teacher in New York. He's been home for a few months, getting out of the hot zone there, and was teaching his classes from our basement. School's finally over, but other than that, we're hanging in.
Well, that is good to hear. Andy, did you think that this day would come in which it appears we are on the verge of the Redskins changing their team name? You know, Daniel Snyder had famously pulled the Charlton Heston from many years back, my cold dead hands, I'll never change the name. But did you think this day would come as someone who's been in DC a while?
I thought it would come a few times, and then in 2016, the Washington Post did a poll where they polled Native Americans in 48 states, and 9 out of 10 said they either didn't have a problem with the name or supported it. And my feeling was it kind of went away at that point, and there were a number of prominent people who had spoken out against the name, including the late, great Frank DeFord, who said, well, maybe we ought to really take a closer look at this, and maybe it is not an issue for Native Americans. And that sort of, put the lid on the pot for about 4 years. And then, of course, after the George Floyd tragedy, things began to move in a different direction. So I would say that there were periods before that, before 2016, where I thought it might change. But since 2014 until this past week, no, I did not think it would.
Why are all of these minority owners wanting out?
That's, when FedEx put out a statement on Thursday that they had requested that the name be changed, that was very telling, because Fred Smith, who's the CEO of FedEx, and FedEx has been on the stadium since 1999, just after Dan Snyder bought the team, he's a minority partner, owns as much as 10%, I've heard. And the fact that they had to put out a public statement showed me that there was friction, that Dan Snyder was hesitant to change the name. There was pressure from investors of these big companies like Nike and FedEx and Pepsi to change the name or to distance themselves from the Redskins unless they did change their name. And so for FedEx to go public with that when there could have been private negotiations between he and Snyder was telling, and it tells me that this Post story that came out today is on target, that there is friction between the other owners and they don't want to associate with Snyder anymore.
Andy, hate to be cynical, but do we think that the reason that Daniel Snyder is seriously considering changing the name is not just the financial pressure from FedEx and Nike and others, but the fact that, and you would know obviously far better than us, but it seems as if there was no way in blank that Daniel Snyder was going to get that new stadium from a community nearby that he wanted. But now he might be able to leverage the name change and get that new stadium.
Well, the Mayor Bowser, came out a couple of weeks ago and said that they would not be able to build a stadium in the district unless they changed the name. And that was the stance of both the local government of D.C. and the federal government. And it's on federal land where RFK sits, built there in 1960. And that would be torn down and the stadium would be built there. I have heard that that's a dead point anyway, that it's not going to happen for DC. That was some interesting public posturing on the part of the mayor while a lot of the country was awakened to social issues at that point. But that though remains part of the story, that may not be so. It does clear the way, in the words of the mayor, to make a deal to build a stadium there, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to happen.
This seems to be working out for Snyder in a way where financially he'll benefit. I mean, this all happened. We've had 40 years of a name change, and all of a sudden FedEx and Nike drop Redskins gear, and we're changing their name in 2 minutes. So it's pretty obvious why this is happening. But it sounds like, the Redskins name will be there for this year, and they'll be buying up all that merchandise, won't they?
Well, you get the coach, Ron Rivera, over the weekend say that he's hoping the name can be changed before the start of the season. If it is not, the Nike situation becomes interesting because they are the official outfitter of the NFL. And as of Thursday, they took down all merchandise relating to Redskins off their website. So would they continue to sell Redskin merchandise for another year? I don't know about that. And, for years, we've heard people say, oh, just change the name. You can sell a lot more new gear. Snyder's position has always been, and he made his money in marketing. It's always been that people have a connection to the Redskins of the great years of the 70s and especially the 80s under Joe Gibbs. And to change the name might alienate some of that fan base. Now, in recent years, that fan base has disappeared. Redskin games, which used to be one of the hardest tickets in the country, you're playing in front of half-full stadiums, and most of those fans are rooting for the other team. So at this point, those fans that he thinks are holding on to the great years, they may be gone anyway. But his position has always been that it would not help his bottom line if he were to change the name.
And FedEx Field is one of the bigger stadiums in the National Football League. So when all of a sudden the fan base begins to wane, there are more empty seats potentially there than there is most any place else. Andy Pollin of 630 ESPN DC, kind enough to join us. You can follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Pollin and then the number 1. What's changed with Snyder? I mean, he's always been difficult. He's always been arguably incompetent. What has changed now that certain people around him are like, yeah, I can't even do business with you anymore? I mean, what's changed?
Well, I think it's maybe because he was so intractable on the name. Now his hand is being forced, but the fact that they have been unable to work with him and try and get that done until finally the pressure had to come out publicly. I think they don't want to do that. Also, the team is not viewed well. They just got rid of Bruce Allen, who was hated. He was here for about 10 years and people could not stand him. And that I think that these companies are, very much in the public eye, and they don't want to be around somebody who's disliked that much. Now, what has happened since January is Ron Rivera has come in and he's been the complete mouthpiece of the team. Snyder's pretty much disappeared, maybe some of it pandemic related, but he's got this big yacht and he supposedly has been off sailing on that for like the last 3 months. And so Rivera has been the one that's been out in front on everything. And he's the one that came out after the George Floyd murder and said that they were going to be more socially receptive to ideas and that he was going to support players who took a knee and that sort of thing. And then we wondered, well, okay, if that's their stance on that, how about the name? He was asked about it just a week ago on a Chicago radio station. He kind of avoided that, said that's a discussion for another time. But as the week went through, we reached the point as of Friday where the team said it was, quote unquote, reviewing this. And then over the weekend, Rivera was asked about the name, and he said he hopes they change it before the start of next season, and that he and Snyder had been talking about it for about a month.
Seems logistically, it seems pretty difficult to get all of the things necessary done. I worked for a team that went through a building name change, and it just doesn't happen overnight. They could do it. It would be very difficult. The most important thing for Ron Rivera, though, is only the Jags have a lower win total, according to Vegas, for this year. 5.5 is where I'm seeing the Washington Redskins for right now. It seems pretty accurate. Seems like they could be picking in the first 5 again. Anything that I'm saying that you think's inaccurate?
Well, I think a lot of it is going to ride on the quarterback, Dwayne Haskins, who started last year. He could not play. They threw him into a couple of games as a backup. He was terrible. Towards the end of the year, he got better. If he makes a big step forward, I think they've got a chance. And then they've got a defensive end that they drafted in Young, who I think can be an impact type of player. Their defense wasn't that bad. So if Haskins is decent, and if there's still something left in the tank for Adrian Peterson, 6 or 7 wins might be doable. But 5.5 is probably around the expectable total.
Andy, is there an owner that Snyder listens to? Because it seems as if everybody around Snyder is bailing on him, so to speak. I mean, it's not quite, when the NBA kind of jumped in with a certain owners and kind of pushed them out. And the NFL doesn't operate this way. But there have been times in the past in which they kind of bring owners in, they put their arm around them, they talk to them, they say, listen, what you're doing's not working. Can we give you somebody? And I know they tried to do that for marketing, a highly thought of guy a couple of years ago that let Daniel hire him and he fired him 8 months later. Is there anyone that Snyder would listen to with the league or one of the other owners, you think, so that he would finally run the team the right way?
Well, what I've read, the one he listens to the most, Jerry Jones. I mean, talk about strange bedfellows, given that there used to be this incredible rivalry between the Redskins and the Cowboys. And so if that's his rabbi, we've got an owner who runs his own team. At least Snyder will say on occasion when he's interviewed, which is rare, he'll say, well, at least I don't go down on the field like Jerry. But Jerry is the general manager of the team. Snyder has tried to do that over the years, and he's finally given up on that, at least temporarily. He's letting Ron Rivera make those kind of decisions. But that's the guy he listens to. Does he listen to Robert Kraft, who lets his football people do the running of the team? No, I don't think so. I think he envisions himself at some point being more like Jerry.
Yeah, it's funny because he's hired some great people, and then he doesn't let them do what he has hired them to do. Andy, thanks for making time for us. We appreciate your insight. All the best to you and the family. Stay safe.
You too. Good to talk to you. Thanks.
Andy Pollin from 630 ESPN DC. Follow Andy on Twitter at Andy Pollin. That's Pollin with 2 L's, Andy Pollin, and then the number 1. Andy Pollin 1 is how you can follow him on Twitter. He's been in DC a long time, knows everybody. Thanks to Andy for giving us some insight there. I mean, you think about who Daniel Snyder has hired. He's hired Marty Schottenheimer, Steve Spurrier, Joe Gibbs. Okay, now Ron Rivera. I mean, he's hired highly thought of people. Fire Schottenheimer after a year. Spurrier walks after 2 years. The only person he hadn't interfered with was Gibbs. And he basically was like a fan when he hired Joe Gibbs. He's like, I can't believe I was able to talk him out of retirement. I'm going to let him do whatever he wants to stay out of the way. And it's the only person that he's ever done that with.
And right now it seems he's doing it with Rivera.
Yeah.
For the interim.
So much so, I don't believe technically they have a president and general manager.
Correct. And that's not happened under Snyder before.
No. Miller and Moulton. 15 minutes before the top of the hour. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Don't forget to vote in our poll question at that Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter, and millerandmoulton.com, which is, okay, you could play golf. 18 holes with either one of these two guys. Who would you pick, Patrick Reed or Bryson DeChambeau? One used to be the big villain on tour. One is now becoming the new villain on tour. And yet they're both very talented. Who is it you would play with? Right now, around 2 out of every 3 of you said you'd play with DeChambeau. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, millerandmoulton.com. Good, bad, and ugly next. Thanks for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program. This is the Dan Patrick Show.
College football world was shook over the weekend by reports of positive coronavirus tests throughout the nation. I think we look at college football and say, well, we got time here. We don't. I mentioned this late last week. You know, the NFL looked like, oh, you got a lot of time here. You don't. You got football. You got a first game in August, which I don't see how it's played.
Dan Patrick. The Dan Patrick Show. Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Hardee's presents the new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger. It's just
what do you think the Bears are going to be like this year?
Charbroiled beef, crispy bacon, and onion rings.
I'm with you. Like, I'm just looking at these over-unders. And there is part of me. One, the Bears are 8.5. I could not play the under fast enough, even at minus 160.
Why are we using this whip?
They did win 8 last year.
I got you, but I think they're worse than they are a year ago. Like, I think Detroit will be better. Like, I could go over 6.5 for Detroit.
The one thing I can argue, though, if you're the Bears, Packers better or worse than last year? Going to be worse. I mean, they got no help, no free agency, no draft. No draft. No one's going to make an impact.
Vikings.
And everything went right for them last year and going 13.
No, you're not wrong, David.
And the Vikings lost a lot of people. Now, they've got good young people that they're replacing them with, but I could argue, Mark, I don't know that the Vikings will be a better team this year than last year. And Detroit will be better, obviously. I mean, in theory, Stafford doesn't get hurt and they don't win 3 or 4 games. But
automation is the answer. Use your phone to turn on your spa, and it'll be warm when you get home.
I just can't bet on Nick Foles / Mitchell Trubisky for 16 games.
No, and they get the AFC South, too.
Repairs and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com.
They get the 2 Souths. So, I mean, you're getting Carolina.
They also got a third-place schedule, so which means they host Tampa Bay. I know that. That's a Thursday night game, I think.
Right.
And they get the Rams then as a well, what division?
Yeah, they get the Rams. No, they got the Souths. So you're right. They've got the Rams and they've got the Bucks.
Oh, well, if they got the Souths and they got the whole division. So then they got the Giants.
Yes, they got the Giants. I'm sorry. There you go.
They got the Giants and the Rams as their third-place crossover games.
Which means the Lions get the Redskins and the Cardinals.
Yeah.
Just saying 6.5 with that schedule. I'll take the Detroit Football Lions to win 7 games. My bet of the day, everybody. I'm going over on the Motor City Kitties.
Here's the thing. You know, the Bears are 1 year removed from 12-4.
Right.
But here's the thing. If it starts off badly, it could go really badly because all they're going to hear in Chicago is the coach and GM are getting fired.
But here's the thing. Here's their schedule. They open with the Kitties. Then they play the Giants at home. At Atlanta, home for the Colts, home for the Bucks. Can they be 3-2? Lions, Giants, Falcons, Colts, Bucks.
Well, they gotta be 3-1 hosting Tampa. If they're gonna do something this year, they gotta be 3-1.
Go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
It's Kaylee Kobe with your Kobe.
I mean, win your 2 home games, split, beat Detroit.
Right.
On the road. You're 3-1 hosting the Bucks on a Thursday.
Have your air conditioners cleaned twice a year by Nate certified mechanics, like my dad. All the mechanics at Kobe Cooling are NATE certified because you deserve the best. If your AC stops working,
I will say this about the Lions: 4 of their first 6 are on the road. 3 of their last 4 are at home, but the home games are Green Bay, Tampa Bay, and Minnesota. And the road games at Tennessee. Their Final 4 is hard.
We hope you'll think of Kobe Cooling. No nonsense.
They get 3 of them at home, but
Jesus, the Lions, they got to avoid a 1-3 start.
yes.
Home for the Bears, at the Packers, at the Cardinals, home for the Saints.
Yeah.
I mean, you can be 1-3 in a hurry there.
From the best headlines
The best.
to the worst.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody ever.
Look at that. That was a football discussion, everybody. How about that?
Week 1's
This
pretty
is
big
Mark
for both
Miller's
Detroit and
Good,
Chicago.
Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
You're live.
For the good today, we go to Washington State, not city. Michelle Brenner lost her job because of the pandemic, and she decided to use the extra time and a family recipe to create a free food movement in her community. She has made, so far, 1,275 pans of lasagna.
Wow. I'd take one of them.
Exactly. Who doesn't love a good lasagna? And
Love
she's
it.
made nearly 1,300 pans. She said, I knew it was time in my life to give back to the people who paved a life's path for me, and I have lived 45 years of life that I've had. Good for you. Great idea. In Gig Harbor, Washington. So,
can I just throw this out there? 2 meals that I think a lot of us really like and enjoy, but for the most part, we only eat at home. Will you, Mark, go out and order either meatloaf or lasagna? Out.
Meatloaf, yes. Lasagna, no.
Okay. I will.
Well, you don't cook all that much, though.
I know. Cooking a lot more now, though.
Why? That's why.
But I wouldn't cook either one of those 2.
For the bad, we have 2 men who were doing a little stealing. They ripped off an ATM. Well, William Harr and James Swan entered the store, took the ATM with pry bars, and to get to the cash box, they didn't go far. Apparently, a customer watched it all go down, took a picture. Authorities say 25 minutes after the theft occurred, state police located the suspect's vehicle and arrested the occupants.
Mark, what is it that noted 21st century comedian / philosopher Ron White once said?
Can't fix stupid, David.
No, you can't, Mark.
And we go to Japan to give you the really stupid, or also known as the ugly. Yoshito Hadera, was wanting to meet some ladies. So what he did is he would slash the tires of women's vehicles so he could meet them.
Oh, for goodness sakes.
He would then come back and offer them help to change their tire. Apparently, he's been doing this for nearly a decade. But he avoided jail time because he would compensate the women. Apparently, he's done it over 1,000 times. And to make matters worse, he never landed a date with this tactic.
A real winner.
And that, David, is the good, the bad, and the ugly. On this July 6th, in the second half of the longest year in the history of mankind, 2020.
I mean, does this guy think he's Costner in For Love of the Game? All right.
That was on yesterday.
I actually like that movie.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Really?
Positive. I mean, I've seen bits, but never start to finish.
Yeah, it's
another Costner baseball movie, and it can't be as good as his other baseball movies, so I'm not interested. I mean, at some point, if you're Costner, you got to give up the whole baseball movie genre.
Why? I mean, if it's working for you, you just, come up with a different one. It's like telling CBS to come up with something different than CSI. They look at you and go, why? But just come up with a different city.
What cities haven't we used yet? How about Detroit?
Right. We traded New York and Miami for New Orleans. What are you talking about? We threw in L.A. We added a New Orleans. What do you mean we got to come up with something different? So you haven't seen the movie?
No.
All right. His lead romantic interest, I believe it's Kelly Preston, Travolta's wife. All right. He meets her because she breaks down he's headed to Yankee Stadium. All right. He's playing for the Tigers. They're in New York. And, she's an attractive woman broken down on the side of, the cross. I think it's supposed to be the Cross Expressway. And so Costner pulled over and helped her get her car running, and, well, the rest is history. So.
Gotcha.
There you have it. So this guy in Japan there thought he was Costner. I mean, it only works if you're Kevin Costner. Now, if somebody, 479-5551, Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, if you have honestly, with a damsel in distress on the side of the road, and a relationship came of it because you pulled over and helped her out, even a date, a dinner, a movie, something like that, please do tell 479-5551.
Good luck. I'll be waiting around all day for those, David.
Especially when you don't know when people are going to hear this. I mean, who knows? You might get 5:39 p.m. All of a sudden, somebody will go, well, believe it or not.
Still got a bunch of rain for the Marco folks today, so be careful for about the next half hour. It should be gone after that.
You do have to catch that movie at some point, though.
I do.
Right? It's Vin Scully calling A Perfect Game.
All right. For a little Vin, I could watch. But yeah, that was on yesterday. I happened to just flipping through the channels and saw that was on. I didn't stop. I mean, I had to get to a recap of an Xfinity race or something.
Well, it was a huge weekend for you. I mean, Chastain was in both the Xfinity and the Cup race.
And the PGA's in Detroit. I mean, you can't line it up any better than that on what has been the worst 4th of July weekend in the history of my life.
Yeah, boy, you took it hard. You were doing well. You made it 3+ months. I would bring you on and say, hey, I'm starting to struggle. And you'd be like, let me tell you, I'm spending time home with my daughter. Things are great. Let me tell you, wife and I were having dinner. Life's a ball. I'm not missing anything at all.
This weekend it hit me. I was depressed all weekend, David. I was just a wreck. An absolute wreck for 48 hours. Never needed a Monday so bad in my life. Needed that weekend to be over with.
Wow, I'm sorry. I will say I knew something was going on quickly behind the scenes. Mark has to send me a link in order for me to click on it and get connected so we can do this thing together every morning. And usually Mark sends it within 10 minutes of the show starting. It's not really a priority. He gets around to it. Okay. Mark, all of a sudden, it was like 5:33. Boom, I got the link. I'm like, man, he's usually getting up at this time.
I was already up, showered, had the dog out. Now, couldn't wait to get out of bed on a Monday. I was fired up for this week to start and last weekend to be over with. Let's just start moving forward to football season, folks. Miller and Moulton, the Dan Patrick Show, is next. If you missed anything, you can download the show at millerandmoulton.com. We'll be back tomorrow, 6 a.m.
All right, you guys have a good day. Be here tomorrow.
All right, Giro, you do the same.
Did you ever find out who